2x2, 7 rows deep.
And rolling up to the start-finish line. It looks like Asher going a little bit off track as the inside.
As they can. Saber making an amazing dive into turn one, and electroshocks off. Eggful gets the move.
But MNU trying to take a move.
Big contact from 5 different parts.
Big incident with Snowdog, our leader.
As we head into turn row, it's a big crash. It's a big crash between the two title contenders.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to Interlagos, Brazil for the first round of the Prototype Challenge. Previously held in iRacing, our next LMP2 season is now held in Le Mans Ultimate where our drivers will have the chance to showcase their dangerous racing abilities. My name is Denak, Kalmari, joined by Suzuka Takahashi here in the commentary booth with Maurer in the cameras ready to broadcast an exciting round. And I know you might be looking at this track here, might look not like Interlagos, but I promise we're going to be in Interlagos very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to Brazil. Interlagos, one of the best tracks that I know. It's home to many races like the Porsche Cup Brazil, Formula One, of course, with the Brazilian Grand Prix, and a bunch of other South American racing series. But right now, we are here in sim racing, in Le Mans Ultimate, racing the LMP2, and not just the WEC LMP2, where it's a little bit nerfed, but it's actually, we're running the ELMS spec LMP2, so this is much beefier. This has a lot more power. It's actually quite close to the hypercars, I would say.
Yes, indeed. It is the unrestricted LMP2, so there are no restrictors on these cars. They're going a lot faster on these straights here, and they also have quite a lot more grip compared to the restricted WEC LMP2 cars. And as you can see, we're now watching Fess Fox in the beautiful blue-green LMP2 car as they're going to be trying around the Interlagos track here for the next couple of minutes. And we also have an interesting different race format around for this race. We are normally used to having our standard 60-minute races here with a pit window, but this time around we are doing 80-minute races. So this is going to force everybody to get fuel. They need to go get themselves fuel at some point because you are not going to have enough fuel in the tank to go the full race distance unless you do some very impressive fuel saving, which I don't think is going to be possible. But besides that, also going to be having a limited tire set, so our drivers are going to have to also manage their tires because they only have a limited selection of fresh rubber to take around the track here, and no tire warmers will be the big one. So as soon as they're going to be heading off on the track here on their qualifying laps, on the first lap, on the race, and on their pit stop, if they opt to put themselves on fresh tires here, they're going to be suffering for some very slow out laps.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the now 80-minute race format here will be a very interesting term for the Simufur drivers. Like, normally they're used to 60-minute sprint races, but 80 minutes, that's a long way. It's gonna be a test of endurance. It's gonna be a test of who can save fuel, who can save tires, and whose strategy will pay off best. And that's the number 10 LMP2 going a bit wide off of, I believe that is turn 5. That is Charter, I believe, in the number 10. They are currently down in P22, making up some ground so far.
Yeah, looking pretty good for our drivers so far, and we are seeing some of our usual suspects here in the top 3 on their lap times. Here, Robbie Kelly currently holding the fastest lap time of a 1:23.6, followed by Adrian Newt in the 1:24.1. So now we're going to be watching ourselves on Alexander van der Woude's car, another TGR car in the top 3, putting themselves into a very nice 24.4. Actually, they just had a new update as they crossed the finish line at 23.826. So there is going to be quite a lot of competition at the top of the leaderboard for sure as we get to qualifying in just a couple of minutes.
So far, it's a TGR 1, 2, 3, 4 dominating the timing sheet so far, but
I
don't
have to
think
correct it. It's a
everyone's.
TGR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because Katie Fox is also a TGR driver.
Oh, I thought that was
so...
Fez in the. I thought that was
No,
Fez in
that's
the
the wrong
relative.
Fox.
I
I
saw Fox.
apologize.
Yeah. TGR 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Absolutely dominating the timing boards here in that very pretty trans flag and pink, purple, I mean, 18 TGR LMP2. And so far, the first non-TGR car we have is Philip Beckevold in P6, who's always been a very competitive driver. Now, Beckevold, that's one of the drivers I'm looking to watch throughout the series. They've been absolutely on it. They're a solid driver based on what I've been seeing from the Porsche Cup myself and previous races. So let's see what Beckevold can do here in LMU in the LMP2 class.
Solid driver for sure. They had a really good running in the Porsche Cup Series. They were close to even winning the overall title in the race. But in the end, it was Jordan Johnson who won the championship overall in the end. And Jordan Johnson is also going to be one of the drivers who are going to be competing in this series as we're going to be switching over to the qualifying just about now. We have also a very full grid. 32 different cars, 32 different LMP2s, 32 different chances for a pole position, but there's only going to be one person that's going to be getting the pole position. It's going to be now starting by Alexander van der Woede here in that pink and white TGR racing car, waiting for the green light to go on the pit exit.
Yeah, we got a very stacked grid today. In fact, in Sim Grid, we do have reserves who unfortunately couldn't sign up to be on the grid on times. So this grid is fully booked. So it's gonna be a lot of drivers, and that inevitably means much more chaos.
Lots of chaos, especially in the qualifying, because this is going to be our usual open qualifying format. You can see all of the cars just peeling out of the pit lanes, immediately booking at full speed around the Interlagos circuit. They're trying to get their temperatures on the track. As you can see already, cold tires, no grip. Alexander van der Woede going off the track on turn 5 there and trying to get back on the road here. So they're going to have to really weave a lot there, really work the tires to get them up to the temperature. It's probably not going to be on the first lap, maybe not even on the second lap before their tires are going to be fully in their window and really get those times going here. So this is going to be the first, I think the first proper lap tires are going to be seen by lap 3, I'd say.
Yeah, I remember earlier chatting with the other TGR drivers before the race session. Alexander van der Woede mentioned that these cars would take around 3 laps, but he said around 4 to 5 laps in his perspective. So it's gonna be a really tough ramp up session trying to get those tires up to temp and put a time in the timing boards. So it will be a long while until we have our representative lap times.
Yes, for sure. Now we're going to be hopping on soon to a onboard lap with Alexander van der Woede here. Going to get going on the track. They're going to be stamping themselves down into turn 1. Nice on the brakes, and got to be immediately rotating to the right there, and then again to the left, heading over to the Curva de Sol turn 3 here. They got to be now unleashing the power on that LMP2 on that long Reta Opposta straight here. Again, weaving those tires, still trying to get the temperature on the car here, Bas. They got to be slamming the brakes down into turn 4, tight left-hander before it's going to be immediately followed by another left-hander of turn 5 before going to be unleashing the power again on this mid-straight here. Bas. Now going to be heading over to one of the trickiest parts here. It's going to be a sweeping right-hander. We're going to be carrying as much speed as possible, trying to get on the inside again, drifting out wide, kind of a double apex corner here, drifting all the way over to the curb here before they can be slamming on the brakes for turn 8 here. Again, it's going to be a lot of undulating currents, right, and then again left through the turn 9 here, trying to get all the way out to the right side here before they got to be again having to swing over to the left side for the tightest corner of the whole track here, turn 10, a sharp, almost hair before we're going to be again unleashing the power on that LMP2 here, heading down there, a little bit of a snap off oversteer on the corner there. Good thing for Alexander van der Woede to catch it before they got to be heading down to turn 12, and then again a final bend of turn 30 before they are now going to be going for the longest left-hand of the entire circuit there. This is actually 3 different corners in one, turn 13 now through 14 and over into 15. They're going to be cutting over that pitch entry line a tiny bit as they got to be unloosing the power, going across the finish line, almost heading up to 285 kilometers per hour before they're going to be slamming on the brakes again for the next lap. So that's got to be a very strong opening lap from Alexander Wood here at 127.1 though, as we saw those lap times in practice being at 23, so there's still several seconds for our drivers to find here.
Yeah, those tires still a little bit chilly, so it'll take a while before our representative lap times will be coming up soon, but we do have a car coming up into the slipstream of Vanderwood actually, trying to get the toe as much as they can. But those tires are really cold, so I think they have more. I think they have more problems than trying to get the toe. They gotta get those tires toasty, as we see Jordan Johnson in P3 over there in that silver LMP2, the number 83.
Honestly, that reminds me of the older classic McLaren cars with their silver and black color here. But that probably seems to be some kind of other livery. But it looks to be a very strong opening lap from Jordan Johnson. But they are still quite a ways off from Alexander Van der Wood here, a full second even on. So there's still got to be a lot more pace for our drivers to find.
Yeah, absolutely. Interlagos, a very fun track. You can see all the elevation, all the technical bits, all the limits you have to reach to get the best lap time, and that's what I love about Interlagos. It's such a racy track. It just screams racing. It lets the drivers try to get tactics on each other, and hopefully we'll have some great wheel to wheel action here in the series because of it.
For sure, for sure. Now we have another updated lap time from Alexander Van der Wood here, and now a 25.1, so still quite a couple of seconds off from their peak lap time here, but that was immediately answered by Adrian Newt, getting themselves the first 25.094 here, so we're getting close to that 24-second lap time threshold here, but there's still got to be another second for our drivers to find here, and we don't see a lap time from Robbie Kelly, who was also one of our favorites to be leading this qualifying here so far, but we're going to be keeping our attention on Philip Beckerwood here, who's now going to be starting on their next lap around here. We're going to be watching closely how they can get themselves around the tricky right-handers through turn 4, turn 5, right away over to the exit of that curve. That's going to be looking very good so far. And let's see if I have a look on those gap times here. They seem to be getting a first sector 1. Yeah, that's going to be a purple sector 1 from Beckerwood as we see a new update time from Niklas Zahn. Getting themselves too close to the top of the standings here. We're going to be watching now close to sector 2 here. We're going to be watching again closely how they can get around here. We're going to be close to the sector time around here as they're going to be chasing on Adrian Newt right ahead of them. I think right about now they're going to be hitting that second sector zone here. Let's see how my sector times are going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at a 2/10 improvement looking at their current delta, so looking to be very positive on their own personal best. But now across there's not going to be an improvement on their sector time yet, so not looking too good so far. Full Beckerwood to get themselves that top standing time here yet, but they are still on a really good improvement as they're going to be shooting themselves down the long left-hander straight here across the finish line. That's going to be a nice lap time so far. That's going to be indeed a new best lap time so far of a 24.133. So a little bit time lost in sector 2, but they gained all that back in sectors 1 and 3.
Philip Beckerwold finally won the first driver to dethrone any of the Tiggang racing cars here in a session here in qualifying. So I wonder if the other drivers do have extra pace up their sleeve, because this is going to be a very interesting fight for sure between the likes of Beckerwold, Van der Wood, Johnson, Newt, and Van Beek if all stays as is.
Very much for sure. And I'm seeing a lot of green on my board all around here. Lots of green deltas. Everyone's still trying to get their tires into their temperature window here. We are already over 7 minutes done with our qualifying session. It's only at this point where our drivers are going to be getting their ultimate pace out of these cars here. But that's also going to be something that kind of have to be very careful, because if they lock up their tires, because these cars have no anti-lock braking system, so you need to be very careful with their braking. So if you lock your tires, if you spin the car around, that's going to be flat spotting your tires. That's going to be ruining your performance. Then you must go back to the pits to get yourself some new fresh set of tires, which again is going to take you another 3, 4, maybe even 5 laps to get the temperature in those tires to properly push them. Now I'm going to be watching ourselves on, I think that's going to be who's Adeline there, unleashing the car on the...
That's Mooney, actually.
Apologies, that was going to be a Commodity here, hitting down the lap time. That's going to be also a very good lap time improvement from Jordan Johnson, getting themselves up into P2. I'm going to be watching now closely to see how they are going to be getting themselves across the finish line. That's going to be it. Decent improvement for Moody, but that's not going to be a pole time so far.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, when those cars lock up, you can really feel the flat spot. And that was a spinner from one of our cars, but we're still continuing qualifying, and they'll be returning to pits as far as I remember. But back to where I was about tires. Once they lock up, you'll really feel it vibrating, like your steering wheel just... I bet it feels something like that. I don't really drive much Le Mans Ultimate, but flat spotting is never a good thing.
I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends have considered it like a hand massage simulator when you get your flat spots on those tires. You're going to be feeling it a lot here. And a lot of our TGR drivers have also been trying their best to just reduce the effects of that vibration on their wheels once they with those 4-speed facilities here. But hopefully our drivers are not going to have to worry about that. But once we get to the actual race, that's going to be a whole different story, because then at that point you will no longer have any more chances to head to the pit lane to reset your tires. Which again, I have to remind you, there are only a limited set of tires in this series. A total of 8 tires overall, so that's 8 individual tires you can have in a single race, which means you have 1 qualifying set of tires and then 1 race set of tires that you can use here. And if you flat spot the tires, if you spin, if you crash, if you lock up and you hit those flat spots, you're going to be stuck with them for a very, very long time. So I hope you're going to be enjoying that hand massage for the next 80 minutes if you have that happen to you.
Yeah, this is why you got to be really careful with the tires here throughout the whole race day, because you don't want to be flat spotting them. You don't want to be putting them to waste. You really want to save as much tires as you can so that you can have the optimal amount of set for your qualifying and race strategy. As we see Robbie Kelly, who unfortunately not in the top timings so far, but I assume they're just getting the tires warmed up, and hopefully I will see Robbie Kelly in the mix, because Robbie Kelly, a very solid driver with insane pace. So I hope that it's just something with the tires and not really something wrong in the car.
Yeah, we'll watch them very closely here. And also, this is something drivers will also have to keep in mind, is not using the tires too much in the qualifying session here, because you only have your 2 sets of tires overall that you can use. So some drivers might opt to only do a couple of laps, enough to get themselves a solid lap time on the board here, and then they're going to immediately head back over to the pits and then start the race with those same set of tires here, because at that point, those tires will be scrubbed in a little bit. They're going to have a little bit better grip window right from the start of the race here, as opposed to having a completely fresh set of tires that are going to have to take, again, another several laps to get into their proper operating window here. So not only is qualifying going to be very interesting, as we're going to be heading over to the last 10 minutes, it's because the race start also got to be very interesting, because there's got to be drivers who will opt to have their same qualifying set of tires, or they might even opt to have a fresh set of tires entirely for the entire race here. So lots of different strategy options. This is definitely going to be a strategy battle, as we're going to be watching now Beckebold here chasing down a purple, I think that's going to be one of the Dragon Liberate cars, one of the default cars. Actually, they are not going to be doing that. They're going to be heading over into the pit lane and opting to abort their lap time. So I think that may be just done on their lap time so far. But we now have a new pole, so that's going to be Fez Fox, our Simufur racing driver, our server owner, with a fast lap time of 23.783, only a couple of thousandths off from Philip Beckable, who's sitting at a 23.8. So the competition is getting much tighter, because we also have another 23.8 from Alexander Van der Voorde. Jordan Johnson also at 23.899, just barely. So the top spot of this qualifying is extremely contested.
Yeah, Fez Fox has entered the chat, and I do want to point out the top 3 times are less than a tenth of a second within each other. So the competition here is going to be really, really close. Fez Fox so far with the pole position, trailing behind is Beckavold and Alexander Van der Voorde in P3 so far. But who else could be in the mix?
I think there's still going to be a chance for Robbie Kelly to get in there, as long as they can get that good lap time on board. There's still going to be quite a lot of traffic on the track at the moment here. That is going to be throwing a wrench into all of our drivers' wheels here. Now they're going to be crossing the finish line. As we see a car spun out on the background. I'm not quite sure which car that was, but that's not going to be a good run for them at all. I think that's going to be their tires are ruined. I think that could be disqualified over in that one single mistake.
Yeah, those tires are absolutely gone. Flat spotted all 4 corners, so you might as well have to throw these tires in the bin. But anyways, Robbie Kelly has now recently stolen pole position from Fezbox by 1/10 of a second. So a huge gap, all things considered, from our previous qualifying runs. But I feel like there's still a little bit more of time to be gained by these guys, as we have 7 minutes left on this qualifying session.
7 minutes to go. Not that many more laps left here, because not only is time running out, the tires are running on all these cars here, because they're going to be slowly losing that optimal peak grip window they had there. So I think we're going to be seeing our last properly fast lap times at this point of the track here. We're going to be keeping our attention on Robbie Kelly. They're going to be swinging themselves around throughs, turn 9, 10, 11, heading over to the back part of the track here, trying to just get as much speed as possible through the course here. They're going to be Again, waiting for the right braking mode. That's going to be now unleashing the power on those last couple turns here. Let's see how good of a time. I do see a green delta on my timing sheet here, so this could be another improvement on Rebecca. Let's see as they cross the finish line. That's going to be a new fast lap. That's going to be a 23.572. That's going to be now 2/10 clear from Festbox. So Robbie Kelly immediately asserted themselves at the top of the standings here.
Robbie Kelly extending their pole position. That's going to be more difficult on the drivers. Like, it will be, it's less of a question now and more of an answer. Who will get pole position? And so far, with 6 minutes to go, all odds are leaning to Robbie Kelly, but I feel like there's still a lot more time left. Some of these drivers might have a trick up their sleeve. Some of these drivers might have extra grip or extra top speed, etc. But in the end of the day, it's going to be a really tough qualifying session with how big of a gap Robbie Kelly has put up.
Tough qualifying session for sure here. We also see a couple of cars who have still not done themselves a lap on the track here. We have ELMS Lemon and Kordian Krzymski. I apologize for the pronunciation on that Polish name there, but they still have not done a lap time so far here. We also have a couple of cars who are quite far down on the rankings. They're seeing 1 minute 30s, even 127s here, so I'm hoping they're going to be just waiting to get their tires in the optimum window here. We're going to be watching now Blade Wolf Kagekyo, one of our premier Le Mans Ultimate endurance racing drivers here, trying to get themselves a better improvement around the track here. They don't seem to be having a too good of a time here so far. They haven't improved a lot here, but I'm seeing a big improvement on this. That'll be a whole 3 seconds as they're now going to be going over the finish line here in a couple of moments here. We'll also see another improvement from Robbie Kelly, and again another 23.4, so they are absolutely flying, as is Blade Wolf Kagekyo flying up across the finish line. That's going to be a pretty good improvement. That's only going to be enough to get themselves up 1 position into P29. So you can see everybody is pushing so hard, but there's a huge pace difference now between the first and last rankings in this race here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robbie Kelly just extending that 3/10. It's going to be even tougher for the likes of Festbox or Philip Beckevold. But Beckevold here on the final straight, what can they do to try and dethrone Robbie Kelly? Will it be a time worth beating our Robbie Kelly? No, it's not. They're still in P4, but another driver has entered the chat. Introducing Tai Chin, who has come into the ranks, 2/10 down on Robbie Kelly, and is showing themselves in the final moments of qualifying with 4 minutes remaining. That's around 2 laps worth of qualifying.
Absolutely impressive time from Tai Chin on the last 9 minutes of our qualifying here. And I'm actually not quite sure who Tai Chin is. I don't remember the team. Going off. That's them off and into the barrier still. So that's absolutely going to be qualifying over for them. They indeed teleported into the pits there. So that was a really dramatic moment. I'm going to be watching a replay of that exact moment here as they're going to be just pushing really hard. I think it's going to be in turn 6. Yeah, they just lose the car, just push the car a little bit too hard on that right hand there before they're going to be, into the barrier. So that's going to be qualifying absolutely over for them at that point.
Yeah, the car slipped on entry, and that was, I think they corrected a little bit too much. But Luis Adeline recently showing up again in the qualifying order, 2/10 down on Robbie Kelly, and now in P3, the number 57 Echo LMP2 has recently shown themselves. From our previous experience in Blue Shark E-Racing, they have constantly been the fastest, and I'm sure that they're the fastest here in Racing Team Echo now. And as we see Philip Beckevold now tumbling down the order as these drivers start to show themselves.
Looks to be a very strong qualifying from Luis Adeline for sure, who has now opted to head back into the pit. So I think we're going to be seeing most of our top drivers just done with their qualifying so far. In fact, I don't see that many more cars left on the track here. I'm only counting, I think, 7 cars around at the moment here. Our top 4 are all in the pit lane. None of them are currently on a lap here, so I think they have all decided that they have extracted the most they can out of those tires. Now they're just going to be waiting for the race start here, and that's going to be important because even though they didn't get perhaps the best lap time that they were hoping for, there's still going to be a very, very long race. It's not going to be just about your pure raw pace. It's also going to be about how well you can manage your fuel, how well you can manage your tires, because you don't have to necessarily switch for new tires in your pit stop here. So you could save a lot of time doing that. You could also save a lot of time by just not consuming as much fuel as possible. So I think the crucial fight is going to be with your fuel management, with your time management, and how long your pit stop is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is the LMP2 car after all, a car built for endurance racing. So proper tire and fuel management will be the key here as we head into the race. As Sauce Dragon, who's in P15, comes to the pit lane. I assume that wrapping up their qualifying session, as we have 1 minute 45 to go, so not a lot of time. I believe that these will be the final laps of our qualifying session as we look over to Xavier Rank here in the number 48 LMP2 car. And so far they're P12, so, which is not bad, but I feel like there's a little bit something with Bill Rank.
Yeah, not looking too good on their lap time so far. In fact, they're going to be aborting their lap time as well. So I think we're just about at the end of our qualifiers here. And I'm going to be seeing, I think that's going to be Kalmari Jurasek here, one of our TGR drivers here now on their track here. One of the last cars trying to extract a little bit more pace out of their car. They're going to be going through, I think that's going to be through to 7, then 8 and 9 around here. Now, actually, that's going to be turn 10 right around there that we're going to be now going to now swing through into turn 11, then into turn 12. Let's see. They don't seem to be on a big of an improvement. They're currently actually down on their previous lap time, about 3/10. Unless they get a really, really good launch on this corner, I think that's going to be qualifying over for them as well. Let's see. They are not really improving a lot here, but another car I do see improving on the track, and that's going to be Nicholas Zahn, all the way down in P21, currently 3/10 up on their previous Delta time here. Going to be watching very closely if they can see any more improvement. They're going to be going all the way over to those track limits. They're trying to extract as much possible out of that, as much pace possible out of that LMP2 car here. They're going to be, again, sweeping themselves through to that last couple of corners to unleash their power. They're looking to be on a really good improvement here. They might shut themselves up a couple of rankings here as soon as we watch them cross the finish line. That's going to be one of our last cars on the track here, but it looks to be a good opportunity to improve. In fact, they do improve a whopping 5 position up into P17, so that was a really good lap time here. And now that I see the qualifying over here, there is a stonking amount of cars here. We have everybody from P21 up into P7, P8 in the 24s here. So all of our drivers extremely close in pace as we see.
That's a spinner from
spinning out as well, hitting the wall. So that's going to be a tire set ruined, the car ruined, and qualifying over. That's going to be a confirmed Robbie Kelly in P1 here, unless we see a huge lap time improvement from Proto and others here, but they are only seeing a couple of tenths, not the couple of seconds they would need to get themselves a pole position on the track here, but that's going to be confirmed. Robbie Kelly in P1, Taichin in P2, who's Adeline rounding out our top 3 in P3. So that's going to be not the TGR front row lockout that we may have seen in the practice. That's going to be a nice and very great for sure at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Robbie Kelly on pole position by a huge margin, almost 3/10 off of Chin and Adeline. So I think Robbie Kelly's pace is insane, but we can't really tell. The only way we can tell is with a race that race is actually 80 minutes, so we got a lot of racing to deal with. It's gonna be a test of strength, endurance, racecraft, and management.
Absolutely. And this is, again, I have to remind you, the caps in the top 20 here are absolutely insane. We have the first 24 lap time at 21, and if you just improved 4/10 from that lap time, you'll be shooting yourselves all the way up into top 10. So the mid-pack is going to be extremely contested here in Interlagos tonight.
The grid looks really tight here in qualifying. I hope it stays that way in the race, because it's going to be a lot of brilliant racing if all is said and done.
Absolutely, indeed. We're going to be waiting a couple more minutes for our drivers to get ready for our race starter, which is going to be a rolling start. But this is going to be the crucial option that our drivers are going to have to consider. Are they going to be starting with a brand new, fresh set of tires, or are they going to be using those qualifying tires to start the race with? Because those qualifying tires are going to be scrubbed in a little bit. You're going to have a pace advantage at the beginning, but then you're going to be having overall less grip throughout the rest of the race here. So that's going to be one of our important considerations for our drivers here. I also saw a lot of chatter about drivers only replacing some of the tires during the pit stop here, or no tires at all. So there's going to be a lot of interesting strategy options for a lot of our drivers have to use. And because this is a brand new series, brand new track, brand new car, nobody really knows what the optimal strategy is going to be. Nobody knows what the meta is.
Yeah, we're really going into the unknown with this. We got our LMP2 cars lining up ready for the grid. Nobody knows what's the optimal strategy. Nobody knows how to get to point A to point B the fastest. And nobody knows how these cars will behave throughout the session. So it's going to be really entertaining to see how these drivers compete against each other in the game.
Absolutely, for sure. Now we are still missing a couple of cars on the grid before we're going to be rolling out there. There's not going to be much of a chance for our drivers to calm down. They need to get their cars ready. They're set up going right away here. We see now Robbie Kelly and Tajin there at the top. They're waiting to release our group here. We see also Festbox in that beautiful Simufur livery blue car right behind them as well, ready to capitalize on any mistakes or any incidents these two cars might have at the very beginning here. It's going to be a pretty tight braking zone into the center as into turn 1 here, because this is going to be a rolling start, so there could be a lot of calamity happening there. We've seen this in Formula 1, we've seen this in GT racing. This could also happen in LMP2, so we're going to be watching a quick grid walk here through our car. It's going to be going too fast for us to all to go here, but it's going to be Robbie Kelly in P1, Taiji in P2, Bruce Allen in P3, Festbox in P4, Philip Beckwell in P5, Alexander Van Wood here in P6. That's going to be followed by Jordan Johnson in P7, Adrian New, that's going to be in P8, another TGR racing car here. It's going to be now first Echo car. It's going to be Callum Moody in P9 here, followed by Robert Rautiani there in P10. That's going to be P11, the first. I think it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be that second Cabal car. It's going to be also P12 for Phil Rank, going to be P13 for Parker Olsen, P40 for Cameron Jurasek, P50 for Josh Strachan, P60 for Sarah Van Vlieten as well, our short racing car here. P7, there's going to be Nicholas Zahn here, followed by Katie Fox in P18. Then it's going to be right behind, that's going to be Fabio Sol in P19. Then it's going to be Christian Klippert in that P20 car here. Then it's going to be Fear April right behind them in P21. Blade Wolf Kakagio in P22. That's going to be Racing Mako in P23. And then P20, that's going to be for Mark Colburn. Going to be one of our last RK9 drivers here. That's going to be that Charter in P25, followed up by Demi Smileface, a new driver on the grid here, followed by Absolute Luck, also another new face on the grid here. Then it's going to be Michael Raven of the brand new CK9 team, also there. It's going to be followed by Proto Natogen in P29. Then it's going to be Thomas Johnson Swartz in P30. Now it's going to be P31, it's going to be Cordian Korean Cincy, and then P30, that's going to be Eva Simon just about as we're going to be getting ready for the start here. I almost ran out of breath.
Goodness, he got Eminem shaking in his boots with all that talking, but I'll take it. I'll take it for you while you take a breather. But the LMP2 cars lining up, waiting for the green as we go green right now. That's a penalty for Protonogen, all ready for a track cut, but driving to turn 1, it's Robbie Kelly with the advantage, and Luis Adeline going down the inside of Chin, maybe getting P2. That number 57 Echo LMP2 gets into P2. It's a little bit slippery, but Adeline beats Chin off the line, but Chin is coming back into turn 3. We got a lot of chaos. We got RG Bargy going up behind, and Chin going down the inside, thinking better of it, and that's Alexander Wood down the inside of Fez Fox. Oh, and that's Fez Fox going a bit wide and rejoining track. Absolute chaos everywhere.
Bold moves from Alexander Van Wood to shoot themselves up the inside into turn 4 here. Turn 4 ahead of Fez Fox here, ahead of a whole different cars here. But now it's going to be also Robbie Kelly now under threat from Luis Adeline. They have now lost the advantage they had at the start of the race. They're now going to be under attack from the Echo Racing Team car, followed immediately by Chin, by Buda, by Fox, by Johnson. A whole gaggle of cars here. It seems like everybody has made it through in one piece so far. There's going to be not too many insets here, but it's going to be watching very closely. Robbie Kelly is going to have to keep their eye on their rear mirror, because they're going to be heading over to this long left-hander straight there. There's going to be no slipstream for Robbie Kelly, and followed immediately by the Echo Racing Team, Luis Adeline car there. That's going to be a dangerous spot for Robbie Kelly. That's going to be seeing how well the slipstream is going to be working for these LMP2 cars, as they're going to be rocketing themselves down all the way up into 280, maybe even 290, close to 300 kilometers per hour as they shoot down the straight here. But there's going to be no change in position here so far. Their top 3 stays the same as they're going to be heading around for lap 2.
Adeline coming out of nowhere to dethrone Chin, and maybe could have a bite off of Robbie Kelly, but we'll see. I think Adeline on the scrub set, which explains the absolutely insane pace that she had on the race start. But we'll see later on if she's on the scrub set, will it pay off in the long term? But if it's raw pace and she's just juking it out with a fresh set of tires, that's just insane performance from her.
Absolutely insane performance from all of our drivers here so far. It looks to be a very clean race so far. Everybody has kind of spread out already, but there's a lot of fighting. That's going to be Charter fighting against Mark Colbert here, followed also by Mango and Luck right behind them as well, also having their own little fight as they're going to be shooting down into, I think it's going to be turns 6 and 7 there. It's going to be locking up tires, a lot of tires were happening. There's going to be a car spun out in the background there. I think that's going to be Michael Ravenloft. They're losing their car. No, actually, no, that's Phil Rank. Phil Rank has lost their car in the background. They're losing all the position they gained here. They may have actually head to the pit lane as well. I'm not quite sure what happened. Maybe we'll see a replay of that later on here, but they're going to be, again, still going now, so they're hopefully going to be trying to recover those positions that they lost.
Yeah, unfortunate for Phil Rank. Now they have to deal with that flat spotted tires. It's going to be It's gonna be really tough 80 minutes for Phil Rank as Robbie Kelly continues to lead their drivers. Another driver on the charge, Alexander Vanderwood, who is now 4th place and could have a chance against Tai Chin.
Looking to be a very good opportunity for Taichin. As we see Taichin having a little bit of a look on Luis Adeline heading down into turn 4 there. They're weaving left, they're weaving left. They're really trying to unsettle Luis Adeline. They're going to be having a peek there, but no, there is no space for them to make a move happen. Luis Adeline slams the door shot and they still hold on to that P3 spot there. The battle is increasing, but the more they battle, you can see Robbie Kelly has already extended this gap to 0 for a second here, so the more these cars are going to be fighting, the better chance it's going to be for Robbie Kelly to just run away with it.
Yeah, Robbie Kelly at the moment with a huge lead as these drivers continue to squabble for positions, but I feel like Alexander Vanderwood will now join the mix with Chin and Adeline and try and fight it out for P2 because at the moment, Robbie Kelly looks untouchable right now.
Absolutely untouchable at the moment here. The gap is again still increasing as they gotta be finishing lap 2 here, and they're still, and again the gap is increasing even more here, but Taichin is still trying to chase down now Luis Adeline, followed by Alexander Vanderwood right behind them. I think the gap is not gonna be quite there to make a scent happen here, but the gap is gonna be shrinking down as they're gonna be using that slipstream on this long straight here, inching themselves very closer. If they are feeling brave, they might just make a scent down into turn 1 as we see Robbie Kelly, and again another fastest lap of the race here. Through lap 3 here, that's going to be again a big send from Taichin into turn 1, but there's going to be no space, no distance for them to make a move happen on Adeline. But there's going to be also Vude and Bestbox right behind them, ready to capitalize on any mistakes that might happen here. But it looks like the gap is a little bit larger this time around here, so there's not going to be no more chance to make those sends happen there. But it is going to be getting closer. The battle is increasing. We see a lot more battles happening there in the background. I saw probably a gaggle of 4-5 cars there going side by side, heading down into turn 4 here, and everybody still seems to be intact in one piece. Even more dive bombs happening heading into turn 4. I think that was going to be Parker Olsen there having a fight with Robert Rautiainen there, heading now into turn 6 and heading into 7. This is going to be TTR Civil War there. Nobody's going to be friends in this race.
Yeah, it's gonna be utter chaos. Everyone is gonna be throwing hands at each other. They don't care if they're teammate or not. They'll absolutely battle it out because at the moment I feel like the current phase of this race, it's more about track position and trying to get ahead of each other, trying to use as much pace as they can, but it can be really tricky when those drivers also want to defend and also want to prove themselves to be on top.
Who's going to be on top? That's going to be Robert Rautiainen getting right all over Parker. Also, they're going to be going side by side through the left-hander, through this long left-hander straight here. They're going to be on the inside heading to turn 1. Parker also is not going to be at the best spot to defend for that, but they're going to try their best. They're going to be slamming hard on those brakes here, but Robert Rautiainen is going to be squeezing just about ahead of them. That's also Kamil Jurasik right in the background there. Another TTR driver there, hoping to capitalize on this fighting that's going to be happening right ahead of them. That's going to be Robert Rautiainen and squeeze their way through into P11. That's going to be Parker also in P12. Now chased by Jurasik in P30, but that's going to be even more fight. That's going to be Callum Moody going up beside Tyler Van Beek. That's going to be Tyler Van Beek on the left side there. Going to be shooting up on the inside into turn 4. That's going to be almost contact.
It's a little bit of contact.
Really close there, but they are still making it through. And that's going to be Robert Rautiainen there now on the outside, heading through into the next part of the corner. That's going to be the outside line heading through into turn 6. They're going to be sending as much as possible, but there's still going to be not a good line for them to make there. But that's going to be also Kamil Jurasik in there. Now they're in the back. We enter this fight. That's also going to be Van Fiepel. That's going to be Sostrak, and everybody is going to be fighting for these top 10 positions. This is only a fight for P10.
Everyone and their mothers are battling it out for P9 actually. That is Beek all the way down to the likes of Van Fiepel and Sauce Dragon. There's Sauce Dragon on a charge right now, trying to get up the field, taking advantage of all of the RG-bargy going on. So that is the optimal strategy you want, because with this chaos, you really want to bide your time. But now, Sauce Dragon now vulnerable to Jurasek, as Jurasek looks down the inside, closes the door, but Jurasek's going now around the outside, still in the slipstream. Sauce Dragon right now a sitting duck without that toe. And now Jurasek's, where is he? Inside or outside? Let's see. As Sauce Dragon goes wide, and Jurasek goes through into P14, and Sauce Dragon has a spin. That's a big spin from Sauce Dragon, unfortunately going wide and unfortunately losing traction into turn 3. Now it will be
Tires
really tough.
locked up in turn one, overshot the corner into trouble. That's going to be see the replay, exactly what happened there. They're going to be just locking up hard into trouble. They're going to be trying to rejoin the track safely there, not cause any more further incident, but it looks like they just pushed a bit too hard on the exit there. Lost the car. They're going to be hitting really hard into the wall there. That's going to be right side and the front of the car. Really mangled the damage you can see on the car there. That's going to be a lot of damage to handle. That's going to be a long time before they can head to the pit lane to try and repair that.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate for Sauce Dragon to have that spin now. I think, but I guess that's the price you pay for trying to be a little bit too. And that's number 18. That's Jordan Johnson. That's Jordan Johnson into the wall.
Oh no, what happened there? We must see this immediately. Gonna be watching onboard right away a replay from Jordan Johnson to see what exactly had happened. They're gonna be pushing. No, they just pushed too hard. They lost it. They just gonna be going right away into the tire barrier there. Pointing nose first into that. That is an absolute disaster. And they're still not going anywhere. So I think that's race over for Johnson in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolute chaos going on right now. There's so much happening. Adeline's battle for P2 and then that battle for P9. It's still going on. That's number 43 of Fabio Sol against Camille Jurasek and Katie Fox. So this battle's still not over yet. That is Fabio Sol looking into the inside, not quite saving it for later, but Katie Fox is right behind, so they have to make this move now. They are in a TGR sandwich.
A stripy purple and red TGR sandwich with a bit of Fabio Sol battery meat right in the middle. That is going to be a juicy sandwich for these TGR drivers to enjoy there. That's going to be Katie Fox there in the background trying to get around Fabio Sol there in that green and yellow LMP2 car right ahead of them. They're going to be close to brushing it there on their rear diffusers and rear wing right there. There's going to be no rear bumpers in these cars here with how they're shaped around here, but they're going to be getting as close as possible to them as going to be heading through turn 10 into the hairpin. Now it's going to be again still Jordan Johnson in those tire barriers. They're still not moving anywhere, so that's going to be Jordan Johnson, maybe a mechanical issue, maybe an equipment failure, which is why they're not going to be able to get going again here. But we're going to keep our attention on Katie Fox there. That's going to be now heading down, chasing Fabio Sol through the main straight. Fabio Sol is going to be getting a bit of slipstream from Camille Jurasek right ahead of him, so I don't think there's going to be a chance for Katie Fox to make any moves happening. In fact, the gap seems to be increasing here little by little as they head over to turn 1 here. We see a cackle of 4 cars as well. That's going to be Rope. That's going to be, I think that's going to be another Echo car. That's going to be Callan Mooney, I think, going off the track. That's going to be losing positions to, that's going to be Parker Olsen. That's going to be Rope Rauten losing all of those positions here, but they're going to be now going side by side with Parker Olsen heading down into turn 4 there. It's going to be no 3 cars trying to make a move into turn 4 here, but it looks like that's going to be Callan Mooney managed to just about stay ahead of Parker. Also, that's going to be now even more fighting happening between TGR and Echo here, all the way down in P10.
I just read a chat. Apparently, Jordan Johnson can't get the car into reverse, so I think it's pretty much game over for Johnson, unfortunately. But this battle's still going on. Mooney going a little bit wide. Olsen trying to get a peek around the outside, and Katie Fox has damage. Probably a spun.
That must be contact with somebody. We saw also another car going very slowly on the track. I think it was Nicholas Zahn there that had a bit of contact with Katie Fox. Let's see if we can see on the replay what exactly had happened there. Just gonna be waiting a couple of seconds for our cameras to find the exact right moment here. But we're gonna be, unfortunately, we're gonna be able to find that moment there in the end. But we're still gonna be now. I think it's gonna be seeing a quick replay from. I think it's gonna be Parker Olsen there. Now we see exactly what might have happened there. We see Rob Rauten there in the front. That's gonna be a lot of spinning there. That's gonna be another car spun around on the right side. And that's gonna be nose first into Katie Fox and losing. Oh, that was Sarah Van Fieplen's car there. Spun around the wrong way around, slamming head first. That's a very hard nose spoop from Van Fieplen to Katie Fox. They're both of them suffering huge damage from that.
That's not the kind of French kissing you want here, because these cars front to front, that is an insane way to crash. But that's Nicholas Zahn up the slipstream of Sarah Van Fieplen. Van Fieplen swing into the inside to defend, but Zahn has the outside. Can they make the outside move work? They go wide, they go really wide, and that's Van Fieplen into a spin. So unfortunate, but Zahn still goes through, but not in the way they expect.
Yeah, Von Fiedler just lost the car. I think they already had some damage from that earlier contact with Katie Fox here, so they just have no more grip there. And that's going to be a big spin. That's going to be huge flat spots on those tires. They're going to be suffering with them for a long, long time. And remind you, we have still another 1 hour, 7 minutes left of the race to go here. They have not had a single chance to breathe here. We now see Fox chasing down Alexander Van der Voort here on the main straight here. I think the only driver who has had any chance to breathe, that's going to be Robbie Kelly in P1, who is still 1.1 seconds ahead from Louis Adeline.
Yeah, Robbie Kelly, knock on wood, just enjoying a Sunday drive as the field behind them just throw hands at each other. It's absolutely hilarious. 1 second down the road of Adeline, and now Adeline having to fend off the likes of Chin, Van der Wood, and Fox. Though right now it looks the battle between Fox and Van der Wood instead of the battle between Fox, Wood, Chin, and Adeline, because these two have split a little bit in terms of gap.
The gap is absolutely quite large from Fox down into Becca here, but we're going to see even more fight. That's going to be Kamil Jurasek again having a fight with Callan Mooney all the way in P11, P12 here. Jurasek locked out, started a little bit, went wide in turn 4, so they lost the opportunity to make a set happen on Callan Mooney here, but they're still going to be on an absolute charger. They're going to be chasing themselves down hard here, and going to be, again, maybe thinking of another set heading into turn 6 there and into 7, but there's not going to be quite enough space here. They're going to be trying to just haul the gap back again, maybe have a think of another set heading into turn 1.
Yeah, the train so far it's settling a little bit for now, but who knows, something might happen, because I mean it's still 1 hour 5 minutes into this race, and we've had plenty of things happen as we see Kamil Jurasek trying to get a toe on Mooney, which looks more likely. They are 5/10ths down the road. Could this be a slipstream move, dive into turn 1? But at the moment that gap not closing in, so I guess Jurasek's biding their time for later.
Yeah, it looks like things are finally calming down after the first very intense 20 minutes of the race here. So everybody going to be having a time to breathe and calm down. We see a little bit of a peak there from Callum Jurasek. I think Callum Mooney maybe just lost their car, didn't quite get the optimum exit they would have wanted over turns 1, 2, and 3, those Senna SS there. So, but it looks like they managed to just get a really good exit through turn 3 here to increase that gap again to Jurasek. But yeah, with about an hour left to go here, I think now it's going to be getting to the point where our drivers just kind of have to settle into a rhythm, nail those apexes, nail those exits, and just keep your car in one piece. Because if you get those flat spots, if you get those spins in these early parts of the race here, you don't really have a chance to get any more repairs or any more refueling done at that point, unless you have to do 2 pits up, which is going to be even more time here. As we see, that's going to be a car going off into the escape. I think it might be Sarah Van Fieplen's car again there in the background there, hoping to avoid any contact between these two cars. In fact, that was Sarah Van Fieplen there, just shooting off into the escape road. They are not having a good time, unfortunately, after that spin. I think they're going to be also suffering from some massive flat spots after those spins.
Yeah, Van Vliet not having a nice day right now, but as he said, we've heard of the calm before the storm, but this is the calm after the storm, because so much has happened within the first 20 minutes of this race, and it's just a small fraction of what the race has been, as we see Nick Lazon and Fury April battling it out on the main straight, but April looks to have the advantage on the straight despite the slipstream, so that battle is just gonna settle down for now.
It does look like the slipstream is not quite as strong as in the other simulators that we might have here. It's also probably contributing to the fact that the LMP2 cars are in general just very slippery, very sleek, very aerodynamic cars here. So the wake that they produce is also not the strongest, and they also don't benefit as much from a slipstream as they would with our other cars, like in the Porsche Cup Series that we had just a couple of weeks ago here. So it looks like you need to be like right up in their rear bumper, in those rear diffuser, in those rear wing structures to have any chance of using that slipstream to make a set happen here. But it looks like Louis Adeline and Taijin are still getting a little bit closer now in our lap times here, in our gaps here. The gap has still shrunken to about half a second between Taijin and Louis Adeline. Meanwhile, the gap to Louis Adeline and Robbie Kelly has stayed about that 1.1, 1.3 second range here. So I think Robbie Kelly might be just taking it easy, just nursing those tires, nursing their fuel, and that's going to be the best position you could be in at this point, because you can just control the pace, you can control the tires. You are not under any threat to try to like overextend, try to pressure your tires or try to use your tires too much. That's going to be costing you much later here. So Robbie Kelly is going to be having a pretty good position here so far. Not quite the same for those cars that you see in the background. They're all back to back, only a couple tenths between them. They're going to be fighting hard.
I mean, at this point, that's the optimal strategy. You do not want to be pushing too hard. You got like 60 minutes still. It's only been 20 minutes, so it's an 80-minute race format that these guys have to be really careful with the tires, especially those who are committing to not paying for tires at all. But oh, speaking of the devil, we have Phil Rank right up the rear end. The Blingle Kagekio. Is this a move into turn 1? Phil Rank looking down the inside. Will they be late on the brakes as they go down the inside? Not quite. Kagekio hangs around the outside, doesn't let Phil Rank have a chance, but Phil Rank having a better line off of the Senesis and could have a chance into turn 4.
Looking to be a very good run from Phil Rank here, heading down into turn 4 there, but still not quite enough in striking range for Playful Kagekio. But they are getting really close. They almost brushed the rear diffuser on that LMP2 car ahead of them. We also see Sarah and Friedland there in the background catching up to this fight ahead of them. There's also going to be a Smile Face ahead of this little gaggle of cars ahead of them as well. That might be also putting a little wrench into the gears here of this little fight happening. Again, it's going to be Phil Rank trying to get really, really close to Kagekio here, but Kagekio is a very experienced driver. He's a very good defender, so he's not going to make it easy at all for Phil Rank to get around.
Yeah, Playful Kagekio, a master of defense right now, showing that example to Phil Rank, who is just trying their best to just get past Kagekio, but at the moment, no gaps are showing, no opportunities are showing themselves as Phil Rank has a better cornering. Could this be the move? But unfortunately, they will have to settle with whatever slipstream Kagekio has. And as you mentioned, in these LMP2 cars, there's not a lot of slipstream to get because these cars are very slippery. They're not as draggy as your typical GT cars. But Phil Rank looking a bit closer. Could it be close enough? Not quite. Kagekio going down to the inside, but Phil Rank lining up the exit in the Santa SS. Could this be the move for Phil Rank? They're much closer now. This is going to be coming into turn 4. Will this be the overtake for Phil Rank? But unfortunately, Blameo Kagekio still looks like they have the top speed advantage despite the tow, but Phil Rank going really close up to the bumper, going wide actually. So that's just gonna give Kagekio a little more breathing room.
I think Phil Rank may have absolutely outbraked themselves a tiny, teeny bit there and almost collected Playful Kagekio there in the process, but thankfully they are all still in one piece, ready to fight again another round. That's going to be a big lockup from Rank here, just trying to push the absolute most out of that LMP2 car there. That's going to be not what they want to have on their stars here in this early part of the race here, with now about an hour. As we see
we have a spinner.
That was Fiedland again, spinning around, spinning into the background there. They are going to be going again, but I think the more spins you have, the more ruined your tires are going to be. Every single spin compounds on itself. I think her tires are shredded at this point.
Yeah, Van Fiedland clearly not having a good day. Spin after spin, and that incident as well. So I think Van Fiedland is currently in damage control as we speak, because it's just really tough on her.
Really, really tough. And yeah, as I was saying earlier here, as you get those spins here, you're going to be reducing the grip on your tires, and then that's going to be making subsequent spins even easier to have, and that's going to be a very, very vicious cycle that's going to be happening to you very soon here. So I think at this point, Van Fiedland might just have to head to the pit lane, get themselves a fresh set of boots on those rear tires here, and just try again for later on in the race here. But we're going to be keeping our attention on this top 4 fight here, who's still going to be really, really close between each other. That's going to be Alexander Van der Voorde here, chasing down Tai Chin here, also chasing down by Fez Fox there in the background as well. That's going to be, again, a couple of tense difference as they head down the main stretch here. There's going to be not enough time, not enough space to make any moves happen here. But this little group of cars, they are all still vying for that best of the rest position in that P2 as Robigan continues to extend their lead. There's going to be a 2-second gap, 2.5-second gap now, actually, in this point here to this little gaggle of cars here, as we see another fight developing between Kamil Jurczyk and Kalmari as they're going to be heading down through turn 1 here. Kamil Jurczyk right on the inside, they're just forcing their way through. They're making the gap happen as they're going to be shooting up into the inside of turn 1 here. Kalmari is trying to make that better run on the outside there, just trying to keep their position ahead, and they do. They still stay ahead. There's going to be another cutback move here, perhaps another cutback move for Kamil Jurczyk, but no, Kalmari got the better run on the outside. They managed to just about stay ahead, but there's going to be another chance for Kamil Jurczyk as going to be heading down into turn 4 there. Kamil Jurczyk again on the inside there, again Kalmari on the outside there. Kalmari trying to carry the speed while Kamil Jurczyk goes on the further down with the inside. And yeah, they're going to be again losing the position to Kalmari. Kalmari just doing the absolute best they can to just cut back, swing around. Kamil Jurczyk just has no chance at that point.
That was an excellent display of race cap from Kalmari. Just just trying to put Jurasek on the inside and quickly just running it on the outside into turn 1, and especially the over-under, the switchback move. They have read Jurasek perfectly. They have made that defense very, very well.
Very, very good defense indeed. We're seeing even more defending happening from Beowulf Kakagiyo, fighting against Phil Rank here, heading through into turn 7, into turn 8, and right now, again, Phil Rank is really trying their best to push the car and try to find any gap around around Kakagiyo there, as we see a big lockup. I think that's going to be from Smileface ahead of Kakagiyo right there. Also losing a bit of time. Their lap times has been slowly trickling down here. Looking at my lap time deltas here, there was only a 28.2 from Smileface compared to 27.2 from Kakagiyo. So it looks like it's going to be now Kakagiyo trying to be on the offensive and the defensive as they're going to try to navigate through the slower car here. As we see a huge lockup from, I think that's going to be Mark Colburn there, losing a lot of tire of life on those tires. That's going to be trying to make a move around Johnson. I think that's going to be not Jordan Johnson. That's going to be our other Johnson. That was the Thomas Johnson Schwartz that they're trying to have a fight against. So I think they were just a bit of a too optimistic of a stand there, and they just cost dearly for them. As we see another fight, that's going to be now Parker Olsen and Katie Fox in their own little fight there. You see that a lot of battle damage on that purple Katie Fox car there, going to try to chase down their teammate, try to get around them, but yeah, it looks like they're both wounded beasts. They're trying to make the best of the time they lost from this incident they've suffered.
Yeah, I was about to say that flat spot from Colbert must feel absolutely brutal. It must be knocking the car in its and yeah, as we see Olsen and Katie Fox having their little duel here. Olsen doing some pretty decent defending, but Katie Fox trying to get into the slipstream, trying to get into the slot that Parker Olsen is punching the air in. And right now I feel like Olsen has the advantage for now, but Katie is just looking for a sniff.
Katie's right there, ready to sniff for any vulnerability from Parker Olsen, waiting for any mistake to happen here. And they're getting really close to the Senna S there, but not quite enough there. It looks like Parker Olsen got themselves a better exit through the Senna S into turn 3, heading over to this little mid-straight section here before turn 4 here. As we see another fight developing now between Kakagiyo, Phil Rank. This could be the chance for Phil Rank to make a move happen around the outside there. They got to be sending themselves hard through into turn 1, try to carry all that speed, and they might just about squeeze through, but no, they are way too deep.
Oh, that's wide!
To the AstroTurf there, and they're going to lose all the progress they get. They're just being a bit too optimistic, and they now lose the position to Sawstruck. No, that was actually luck right there that they lost the position. Now they're going to have to make themselves even more progress to try to get back to the place they lost there. All the while, that's going to be Smileface ahead of them trying to get away from this fight ahead, as we see even more fight happening between Nicholas Zaw and Fury April there. Fury April just about squeezing ahead. That's going to be a lot of bumping from Nicholas Zaw there.
Bump and
Zaw
run!
Is just
oh my goodness!
And in fact, they spin Fury April around there. That was a move.
That was certainly that felt like it would fit more in NASCAR than in prototype racing. That was a bump and run. That was 3 bumps actually. My goodness, and a bit of a pit maneuver for good measure, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's not going to be something. In fact, we see
that's
Zon now in the escape road there. I think they may have just realized the mistake they had there, or they had another mistake of their
probably had a
just
spinner.
let April through again, and that's. I mean, if that was a mistake, I guess you would call that karma.
My goodness, this is such an insane race. As we see, I believe that is Philip Beckevold on the rear end of Adrian Newt now. Newt and Beckevold quite a long way behind on the battle of Adeline Chin, and that's Newt with a spin. Oh no! They probably got the tires lit up a bit too much, and that might be front end damage. So unfortunate for the number 272 TGR car.
That front end is not looking happy. In fact, that's going to be Robert Rautiani just getting themselves right ahead of Newt there through into P8. Now Newt is going to have to nurse that damage for quite a long while, because we are still not in the pit window to try and fuel your car up again here. I'm looking at the fuel levels on our cars here. Most of our cars now are hitting just about 50% fuel there. So they still need to go for quite a long time before they can go into the pit lane to try and repair the damage. Because at this point, if you try to repair the damage, get yourself fuel top, you're still going to have to pit again later on in the race here to make sure you get all the way to the end here. But in fact, it's going to be Newt hitting the pit lane, as we see another car. That's going to be Luck also losing the car and spinning around there. there. So that was the car that was just ahead of Renk. Let's see if we can see on the replay what exactly had happened with them as we now watching. That's going to be Renk on the background there. And I think they may have had a bit of contact with Kakagio right there at the front, and that just unsettled the rear of the car and just spun around. So they lost a lot of time there for sure. That's going to be Renk back up in P22. Now chase it down Solstrager for P21, and then hopefully get him back up to P20 to get around Kakagio.
Turns 8 and 9 seem to be catching a lot of victims today. We got lots of spins, lots of contact, and hopefully we don't see more of that as we see Xavier Renk trying to get past Solstragen, but Solstragen putting up a pretty decent defense. But Renk with the better line off these Senes's. Could this be the move? Solstragen holding on the inside. Nope. Giving the inside line to Xavier Renk. Could this be the move into the inside? But that's Solstragen giving a bit of a squeeze, making sure they don't have much room to send it down the inside. And Solstragen there's a little bit of contact between the two, but both pointing the right direction still. But unfortunately, Xavier Renk still behind Solstragen.
I think that was a bit of a sideways move as we see. That's going to be Robert Rautian off in the gravel as well. They also lost the car, so we now have to see another replay from Robert Rautian's perspective to see what exactly happened. They're going to be, I think that's going to be turn 12 where they are, and they just go way too fast into that corner there. They just lose the rear and spin around, losing a lot of the time they gain getting around. As we see even more fighting happening, but that's going to be Robert Rautian. And now Kamil Jurasek on the outside, they're trying to make a move on their fellow TTR racing driver. In fact, they're going to be making it. They're going to stick their way through. They're going to stick their nose up, and they're going to be getting right ahead of them. But there's got to be a very slow, clumsy exit on turn 3 here, giving opportunity not only for Rautian, but also for Saul right there in the background to make a move happen on Kamil Jurasek. Jurasek is now under pressure. Polish trying to defend from the German assault. Well, I wonder, I have seen that before, but that's going to be now again. No, they're still defending on, but that's going to be Robe also losing a position to Saul as they're going to be just about squeezing their way through into P9 here. Now going to be chased down by, that's going to be Callum Mooney right there in the background as well. Also joined by Christian Clippert, another TTR driver there. That's going to be a very close fight between all of these TTR cars there, and they are just fighting tooth and nail for every single position. But though so far, all of this bumping, rubbing, everyone seems to be making it through for the most part in one piece.
Oh my goodness, guys. I thought we were over with all the chaos, and now we're doing it all over again. Is this going to be a frequent instance? And no, that's Katie, another victim of turn 8. But thankfully, getting back on track as soon as possible. This might be a spinner. I think it is.
Yeah, I think that was the same incident that happened early with Playboy Kakagio and Luck, where Luck just had a tiny bit of contact with Kakagio's rear, which then unsettled the rear of their car and then spun around. So I hope it's not going to be too much damage on Katie's car. They're still going to be going here, as we've got to be keeping our attention back on this fight. We've got to be watching from Christian Clippert's point of view as they're going to be chasing out this huge gaggle of cars here. It's going to be Moody, Rautianen, Saul, Jurasek, all locked in a tight fight for P8 on the road here. Gonna be trying to get themselves as close as possible here, but it's gonna be, looks like Clippert has lost a bit of ground to those cars ahead, and the gaps are also increasing between Jurasek, Fabio Sol, and Rautianen there. I think all of our tires and their drivers, the drivers and their tires are losing a bit of pace at this point now, as we're getting close to the midway point of our race.
I mean, at this point, but with all the fighting, I feel like these tires would be really begging for them to stop. You know, they've been driving a long way. Not only have they been driving, they've been battling. So there's a lot of maneuvers you got to do with battling, and that's just gonna pay more dividends. That's gonna mess up your tires a lot more. But absolute luck and Thomas Johnson Schwartz here having a duel similar LMP2 cars. It's actually Schwartz. It's luck behind doing the fake and going around the outside. Could it be absolute luck with the path? I'm actually getting confused right now.
Johnson, because they have the exact same livery, exact same car, so it's really hard to tell. But I think it's gonna be luck behind that. They tried to make a move happen on the outside of turn 4, but they just lost the car. They had to go to the AstroTurf there, so gonna have to try again another lap later. As we now see Rautian in there. Actually, no, that's gonna be Van der Voort here, catching up some lap traffic there. I think that's gonna be Mark Colburn's car there. There's gonna be first bit of lap traffic. In fact, because we have a kind of a short endurance racing format here with 80 minutes of driving here, there's gonna be cars that are gonna be catching up to the lap traffic here, so that's going to be another wrench in the wheels for these leading cars here. And in fact, that's going to be shrinking the gaps between Adeline, between Tai Chin and Van der Voort and Fess Fox there to maybe have another chance at some moves here. But no, it's still within a couple of tenths of each other. There's still no chance for fighting. But where is going to be fighting? That's going to be with
Oh my
Jurasek, with
goodness.
Zal, with Rauti on it. It's going to be Jurasek still leading this back here with Rauti and trying to make a move
Around the outside.
in turn 7, trying to keep that momentum going into turn 8 there. But that's going to be a huge shock for Jurasek. Fabius managed to squeeze their way through back into the lead into turn 8 there. But that was a bold move on Rauti, but still not quite enough.
That was a very bold try from Ratian, but unfortunately Fabio Zal managed to fight back and stay ahead in terms of track position. But I don't think this battle is over just yet, because Jurasek is really having to defend right now, because they are so close. They are almost bumper to bumper right now.
Almost bumper to bumper, rear diffuser to front diffuser here, as they're going to be shooting themselves down through the main straight here, heading down into turn 1 very soon here. They're going to be Fabio Sol thinking about a move there, but there's not going to be quite enough space to make a move happen, so they're going to be staying right behind Jurasek, waiting for a mistake to happen. We'll also see Raudin right behind Fabio Sol as well there. Maybe Raudin probably has a little bit more pace than Sol after those early contacts and those spins they had suffered earlier, but there's still not quite enough space for many moves to happen at this point of our battles so far. They seem to all just be back-to-back in a little bit of a train between themselves. There's going to be quite a lot of space. That's going to be a very late on the brakes, but they caught a lot into Saul. That's going to be putting Saul now under pressure from the Finnish racing driver here, heading through this little mid straight into turn 6 and into 7. That's going to be Rob not quite in the same position, trying to make a move on the outside. I think they may have wisened up from their previous choice here, but they're still going to be waiting for any opportunity to happen. They're going to be angling for maybe a move up here, but no, there's still not enough quite space there. But they are working, they're hustling that pink and white TGR racing car here as much as possible to try and get around Saul and get back up into the top 10.
I wouldn't call it yo-yo racing. I would say it's more like an accordion, because these gaps are just stretching and squeezing bit by bit. And when they squeeze, the battles are absolutely insane, as we see Tai Chin, one of the leaders, coming in for a pit stop.
Yeah, it's going to be the first pit stop of our leading group here. I'm not quite sure if anybody else has done a pit stop so far here. That seems to be the case. I think we have a couple of cars that have pitted for damage at this point. That's going to be releasing Fess Fox and Van de Wood here alone into the track here. They're going to be watching very closely how long that time is going to be once they finish their finish their pit stop here. And this is going to be the crucial part of our race here, because some drivers might opt to not put on fresh tires. Some might also opt to put on some new tires, maybe only the right side tires, or maybe the left side tires here, or maybe only the rear tires here at this point, to try and maybe get a bit more pace on the later parts of the track here. And at the same time, you also gotta have to consider how much fuel you're gonna have to put in the car here to make sure get all the way to the end of the race here. That's not gonna be something that Robert Rauter is gonna be considering. The only thing he's thinking about right now is getting around Fabio Sol. He's gonna be making another move on the outside into turn 7, but no, there's not gonna be momentum for Robert Rauter at his advantage, as we see a car spun around in there. That's gonna be probably one of the lap traffic cars there, just off the track there. But thankfully, no contact happened there so far, so they made it through in one piece, but that just put a block right into Roperata and his plans to make a pass happen there.
Yeah, unfortunate, but they're still on the rear end of Fabio Sol. They're still trying to find an opportunity, but they must be really careful at this point, because a mistake could cost them and put them in the hands of Kellen Mooney and now Christian Clippert, who are slowly creeping in this now 4-way battle.
Looking to be a very tight 4-way battle indeed here. Looks like the gap has increased quite a lot between Jurasek and the rest of the gaggle of cars here. But still looks like it's actually Jurasek that's caught up to Adrian Newt, another TGR racing driver here. Adrian Newt was one of the cars that had spun around and had a bit of front damage on their car as well. So I think Jurasek might have the advantage of having just a clean, undamaged car, whereas Adrian Newt is trying to nurse their broken car into the pit lane to try and fix that damage later on in the race there. So that's going to be Adrian Newt now going to be chased down by Jurasek. That's also chasing Robert Rautinen, chasing down Fabio Sol there in the background there as well. So there's not going to be any changes in position so far, but the battle is getting closer. But now it might be the time for our drivers to consider having a pit stop here if they're going to be getting too much stuck in traffic. As we see now, that's going to be Christian Clippert and Robert Rautinen both thinking about making moves happen into the same corner here, but no changes in position for either of the drivers here. But looks like Christian Clippert got themselves a really good launch into the inside.
It's a sand in the inside. It's a lockup.
No, that is a huge lockup. I think they went on the grass there even, trying to make that sand happen, and just the pound managed to keep the car on the road here. But Christian Clippert is on a mission here.
Yeah, that will really cause Clippert's side. They are really going to feel that, and that's not going to help them at all with this battle. But I do want to point out, I think Adrian Newt is lap traffic to Jurasek, so Newt just, I'm not sure if they've served the pit stop or not. I think they have previously, so just playing the long game, which is going to be a very interesting strategy for sure. I don't know how things will go with Newt, especially after that spin, but we have another driver diving into pit lane. I wonder who that was. That could be. I'm not sure, but right now that could be Christian Clipper. That's Christian Clipper coming in after that massive lockup for sure. I mean, you gotta come in. You gotta fix those tires, man.
I think they're going to be opting for a fresh set of tires after that huge lockup they had there and that big incident. I think they might be able to repair some damage. So we'll see after the spits-out cycle where they're going to be slotting at the end of the race here. But we're going to be keeping our attention between Van der Voort and Lewis Adeline, who have, I don't think at any point this entire first half of the race here been further than a second apart from each other. And they are still going at it with 40 minutes left of the race to go here. I think they're both just almost dead even in their pace here. So I think it's just going to be down to a tiny mistake here and there somewhere. Maybe just having a better pit stop that's going to be dictating who's going to be ahead of this pack.
Yeah, and speaking of, I feel like we haven't talked about Robbie Kelly in a long time now, and well deserved, because they are now around 4 seconds down the road. They have been managing that lead quite superbly, and right now they're having a Sunday drive, because these guys are just fighting each other. Speaking of fighting each other, there's Jurasek and Fabio Sol and Rotanen, as we have Adrian Newt as a slipstream for Jurasek, hopefully. And I think Newt is letting the front runners by. They are lap traffic after all, and yeah, that's Newt pass, and that battle continuing on.
Yes, and actually had a refresh on my live time here. In fact, Adrian Newt just had their own pit stop, so in fact, this is not really a fight for Adrian Newt to consider here. They much rather just wait at the back of the pack here and let them go by, and Adrian Newt can just focus on their own race, so they're just going to be thinking about that long-term gain here, as opposed to getting caught in this fight between their fellow TGR drivers here and Fabio Sol here. We see again Robbie, they're getting really close. Again, they're thinking about a move up on the outside, but no, there's not going to be a good opportunity for them to carry that momentum around. Fabio Sol can cover that inside line there, so there's going to be a chance for them to get around here. But we see another, that's going to be a lockup from, I think it's going to be Smileface there, with Renk now just about squeezing through ahead of Smileface there, getting those up into P14 there. That's going to be, I'm not sure if Smileface has had their own pit stop, and I'm going to have a quick refresher. No, they have. Actually, they have had their pit stop as well, but I think they may have had someone to fix some damage there, so we'll see if they're going to have to head back in the pit as we see another car rejoin the circuit there, I think just after the pit lane. I think I just saw them go wide on the track there, but we're going to have to watch that later, because we have a fight happening again between Raudjan and between Fabio Sol here, heading down the main straight here. We're going to begin to the point where our driver's going to have to start considering pit stop here, and this could be the smart thing for our drivers to consider at this point, because Robe has been going all over, left, right, up, down on Fabio Sol's car there. There's just not been any space at all to make a move happen. So at this point, you might just want to head to the pit lane here, hoping that clean area and get that undercut happen to then get ahead of Fabio Sol.
Yeah, I do also think that an undercut will also help Rotian, and that's absolute luck. Not having the luckiest moment into turn 8 there, another victim of that nefarious corner that has been claiming victim after victims. And I feel like this is another spinner, because that's a lock. That's a massive lockup. And that sends the car pointing the wrong way around.
That was a very strange space to be braking as well. They were on the inside into turn 8 there, and they're slamming on those brakes, so that just rotated the car all the way around there, and that's going to be a lot of tire life and tire tread loss there. That's going to be huge flat spots on those tires, so hopefully they'll be able to nurse those cars in the end here. But we're going to still keep that focus on our fight between Sol, between Raudjan, and between Jurasek for only P8 on the track here. Actually going to be put Jurasek there in P7 as well. Jurasek seems to have a really poor exit off turn 10 here. Now going to be under threat from Fabio Sol as they head up the hill into turn 1. They're going to be all into this main straight here. But I think at this point, the smartest thing these cars could be doing is just head to the pit lane here, because they're just hemorrhaging time. The more they fight between each other, the more try to make these sets happen here. But it doesn't look like it's going to be happening for any of these cars here, because they're going to be Fabio Sol getting closer and closer to Jurasek. Jurasek does not opt to take that defensive inside line. They're going to be staying up on the outside, but there's a bit of a peak from Sol there, maybe trying to unsettle Jurasek. But no, Jurasek is holding strong there. There's the Polish defense is holding strong against the German assault there, and still going to be staying ahead.
Not again with the World War II references, but Jurasek, yeah, holding on quite well as we see Chris Clifford coming out of pit lane, just serving a pit stop, and I think I'm not sure. That was quite a lengthy pit stop from Clippard. I think it was a full service, but anyways, heading back into this battle, and as you said, I think it's wiser to come in for the undercut than to just spend your time and try to fight these guys. But I mean, spending your time fighting these guys is much more fun than an undercut, of course.
Absolutely, indeed. And actually not quite surprised because Christian Clippard was behind them in a pit stop, and now they're back behind them after a pit stop. So I'm not quite sure what happened with those pit cycles there. Maybe we'll see that after the replay there, because they were still at the back of this fight there before they opted to head that pit stop happened there. So maybe some other things we have missed there. But that's not going to be a concern for these drivers here, as they are still going, still back to back, still fighting within a tenth of each other through the next lap. It's going to be again another shoot down the main straight here, heading into turn 1 there. Doesn't look like any of these cars are again opting to do their pit stop just yet, but the fuel is running out from all of these cars here. All of them are less than 20% fuel left there, so they have to pit very soon.
Yeah, we got plenty of drivers swapping positions. Yeah, I can see a lot of cars coming into pit lane. They will be coming in one by one. So at the moment, now is the right time for these drivers to go in for a pit stop, maybe go for an undercut. But I guess to these threes, I feel like staying as long as possible is the name of the game, and trying to get the freshest set of tires, the freshest, the lightest amount of fuel, and to get the best pace as much. But Jurasek defending like a lion over here, trying to hold off the drivers right now.
Defending like a tiger shark, more like it. And yeah, still going at it. And we also see another one of our leading drivers. That was Vesfox, who had just finished their own pit stop as well. They're currently sitting in P12. And that's actually quite a far ahead of Taichin, who is currently stuck in traffic around all these other cars around there. So I think Taichin didn't really optimize the pit stop quite well here, because there's a huge gap now between these two cars here. So it looks like a much better pit stop for Vesfox. But the important thing is going to be happening when Robbie Kelly and Luis Adeline and Van der Woode is going to be heading into the pit lane here, because that's going to be the crucial part, because the lap times can swing by, the pit stop times can swing by tenths of seconds here, as we see. I think that's one of the Echo cars. That was that's Kalmari here. I think they lost their car a little bit on the exit of turn 12 there, as we see.
Oh, the battle's spicing up!
3 wide into turn 1 there. I think that's what the lap traffic cars are trying to make way through to these cars here. Fabio Sol thought about making a send happen on the outside of Jurasek, but that lap traffic car here made them think better of it. They're going to be again stuck behind Jurasek there for another lap here. And at this point, I don't think they even care about the position at this point. They just want to fight.
Yeah, I feel like Sol had the better exit, but unfortunately they couldn't get ahead of Jurasek in time. Jurasek defending still and staying ahead of these two. This three-way battle, it looks like it's not going to end at all. I feel like at this point, they might come into pit lane altogether.
They might indeed come to the pit lane at some point, but we'll see. There's also got to be something to consider, that there's going to be collision in the pit lane. So as we see a car off in the background there, I think that was Beckavold. That is Beckavold! Beckavold lost their car. They're going to be losing a lot of progress on Van B, on Van der Woode, on Luis. Let's see on the replay what exactly happened. I think this could be again the notorious turn 8, just causing absolute disaster for all the cars.
That's
yes, it's going to be
10,
again actually turn 10. Yeah, that's going to be turn 10, pushing a bit too hard on the tight turn 10 corner. They're going to be actually heading to the pit lane right away. No, they're not. They're still out still, despite the spin.
Yeah, I don't think the LMP2 cars like the low speed stuff. I mean, we've been having a lot of moments in turns 8 and 10, but the battle's still no progress so far. These guys are still staying as is, but I feel like at this point, one of these guys has to jump the gun and go into pit lane.
Well, as one of them has to jump the gun, one of them, they're going to be forced to jump the gun at soon, because they're now almost at 10% fuel left there, so they're only going to be a couple more laps left to make any sense happen. As we now see a set happening from the royalty island. They're going on the inside into turn 4, but Fabio Sol is still playing in on the outside there, but that's going to be again another opportune moment for Rotterdam. They're going to be stuck on the outside into turn 6 and 7 there, but there's not going to be enough space for him unless he can really carry the speed through, but no, he can't. Fabio sticks the set on the inside. They're still going to be staying ahead. Robbie Rotterdam must be feeling very frustrated at this point, just trying all the different avenues of approach there, but none of them are open.
Yeah, Fabio Sol parking the car in all the right places, not letting Rotiainen have a chance at him, and that is just masterclass of defense from Sol. Despite the aggressive attempts from Rotiainen, Sol still remains ahead.
still remaining ahead here, and we only have about 10% fuel left on all these cars here. But if I'm looking at the exact fuel figures here, we see Jurasek has the lowest amount of fuel of all these cars. They only have 8.2% left. 8.2% fuel left compared to Fabio Sau's 10.2 and only 9% on Rautianen's car there. So this could be something really crucial for our cars, for our drivers to consider as they're going to be heading through the track. We also see another fight reawaken. That's going to be the fight between Katie Fox and Parker Olson. I think both these cars have now just served their pit stop. Actually, they have not. Neither of them have served their pit stops. Both of them are running quite low on fuel there, so going to have to consider that soon. So they're now going to be maybe trying to work together, just going using slipstream off each other, just get around a couple more laps before they're going to have to head into the pit lane here. And I feel like with Katie Fox, they're going to be losing a lot of time in the pit box anyway, trying to fix the damage on that car.
Yeah, the battle between the two Takegang Fox is still not over yet. I think Katie has the better top speed going around the outside, but Olsen still remaining ahead regardless and defending that position. But Katie Fox might have the over-under. No, they don't have it quite yet. It's going to be really close coming into turn 6 and 7 as Katie goes for the wide line to duck into the inside, but Olsen pulling up great defense.
Yeah, the outside line on turn 6 is just not the place to make a move happen there. You just have all of that momentum you can carry all the way into turn 8 there. That's going to be keeping them ahead. And looks like Katie Fox is still managed to get themselves better exits though compared to Parker Olsen there. Managed to get really, really close, but Parker Olsen doing a really good defense so far here, holding off the assault from the Foxy purple car there. Again, having to back off a little bit, trying to avoid their car from spinning out on the exit of turn 11 there. And again, have to try again another day here. We also see now more pit stops being requested from Filip Bekavot and Kami Jurasek. It looks like Kami Jurasek is going to be the first of this little gaggle of cars here. We also see more cars head into pit lane here just a moment here, but it's going to be Kami Jurasek the first of these cars. We also see Parker Olsen head into pit lane here, so it looks like Parker Olsen decided they don't want to have any involvement in that fight. They're kind of heading to pit lane. Probably a very smart move to do at that point.
Yeah, but absolutely smart move to conserve all that tires. If they are committing towards keeping those tires, of course, but I'd imagine that at least one side or front or rear will be replaced because those cars have been through a lot.
They have been through a lot indeed, but that's going to be also Jurasek. They've spun around. They've lost their car. They lost all the focus they had trying to fight against Saul and Walter and others. So let's see on the replay. I think they had just finished their pit stop at this point.
Oh, there it is.
They just lost the car on their own, and that's going to be a lot of tire tread lost on those rears here. There's going to be some big flat spots on them. That's not going to be a happy Tiger truck there.
I do want to say, I don't think Jurasek has come in for a pit stop yet.
No, they have not. True.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like they absolutely must because those tires are absolutely shredded, and yeah, it's absolutely necessary. And Jurasek sees the pit lane. Will they come in? Yes, they will. Smart move.
That's also going to be Filip Bekavot and Robert Rauten in the pit lane here as well. I think Saul has opted to stay around for one more lap, but they have also requested a pit stop, as has Tyler Van Beek, who has been sitting in a bit of a no man's land of their own here. So we're going to see once they are going to be heading into the pit lane at the end of this lap here. But we see a lot of more cars there in the background here. Now, this is going to be an important thing to consider, that there's going to be a lot of variance in pit lane here, in pit stop times here, depending if you put on tires, how much fuel you have to put on here. So you might lose quite a lot of time here. This is going to be the point where if you've been saving your tires, saving your fuel the best way possible, that's going to be paying much dividends. And we see all three TGR cars there, from Katie to Raudian and to Jurasek there in the pit lane there at the same time. Yeah, so we'll see where they slot it out in the end here. But we also see another fight developing that's going to be between Beipo Kakegio and Thomas Johnson Swartz there. I think both drivers have already finished their own pit stop. Now they're going to be on their last set of tires, their last bit of fuel here, to try to carry themselves all the way over to the end here. And curiously enough, Thomas Johnson Swartz has a whole 10%, no 15% less fuel compared to Bleipool Kagakiyos here. So unless Bleipool has really overfueled their car here, they might be in trouble. As we see Fox, they've spun around. They spun their car around. They've lost a lot of time. I'm not sure if they have that pit stop done yet. They actually had their pit stop already, so I think it might be the new tires might not be in their proper window yet, but we'll see. Oh, yeah. They had a really big spin. I think they might just braked way too hard into the braking zone, into turn 8 there. Turn 8 again, proving to be a menace for our drivers.
That's not gonna be that's not feeling really good. That is going to be really heavy flat spotting for Fez Fox, and that might put them out of the picture in terms of the battle for the lead, as they're right below. No, that's the wrong Fox. Sorry, they're below Fabio Sal, but Fabio Sal coming in for the pit. So is Tyler Van Beek, but Jurasex now having to defend from Taichin. These two have served their pit stop, so this is a battle for outright position.
Upright position indeed, as we now see. That's going to be the leader of our race. That's going to be Robbie Kelly in the pit lane here, whereas Lewis Adeline opted to stay around on the track at the moment here. They're still going to be fighting, and that's going to be Taichi. Didn't seem to have the best pit stop they would have wanted, as we now see Fabio Sol also done with their own pit stop there. Well, let's see where they're going to be exiting. That's going to be Blayful Kagagio there in their side as well. There's going to be a fight between the British and the German heading down into turn 4 there. There's going to be colder tires for Fabio Sol. Can they stay ahead? Yes, they can. They're still going to be staying right ahead of Kagagio here, going through the track here, and I'm not quite sure if they have done their own pit stop at the moment here, but it looks like there was a drive-through penalty happening for one of our drivers. Yes, that's going to be a drive-through for Fabio Sol. That's going to be a disaster, but they had a really good fight between Rautiainen and Jurek, but that's going to be all of their progress lost in that penalty. I think they may have been speeding the pit lane.
Yeah, that is the most likely case, and that's just really unfortunate. A few kilometers ahead in the pit lane, and that may be a little bit of speed difference, but that in terms of penalty, that's a lot of big time that they'll have to compensate. But Adrian Newt right here on the slipstream of Fury April, trying to move up the positions now. Adrian Newt they came in quite early, I believe, for some damage, so I'm not sure if Newt's going for a 2-stop or a 1-stop. It's going to be really close to call, but regardless, they're trying to fight right behind Fury April.
They are trying their absolute best to keep fighting there. I think they might do a splash and dash in the end here if they don't have enough fuel to get to the end. As we see a car going wide there in the bracket, I think that may be one of the lap down cars there, or that may be actually Johnson there in the background who's in the car, but they're still going to be going. That's going to be now a fight between Rautiainen and Adrian Newt heading into the car here. Now we see Lewis Adeline being the final car of our leading group here, heading into pit lane. It's going to be very interesting to see if they're going to be getting ahead. That's going to be flashing from Rautiainen, trying to force Adrian Newt around there. Very, very rude.
That's Vanderwood actually.
Rautiainen trying to get ahead of their fellow TGR racing driver. So no love lost between teammates there, as they're going to be just fighting for their own position.
Yeah, Alexander Vanderwood with a battle with Lewis Adeline. So this move was absolutely important for them. And now that's around the outside. Absolute luck, not having a lucky day into turn 4, and that's going to be very wide. But they'll make it back on the racetrack. Don't touch the barriers. And yeah, I feel like they'll be joining the racetrack quite nicely, as we see Robbie Kelly. As we can see,
we're not going to be getting a replay. We're going to be seeing live footage here. That's going to be Lewis Adeline right behind Robbie Kelly. Robbie Kelly seemed to not get the best lap time possible here. We also see Christian Klibber, which I think is a lap down at this point from these lead cars here. Still trying to just kind of cling on to the cars here, but it looks like Kelly caught themselves a much slower pit stop compared to Lewis Adeline. In fact, yeah, Lewis Adeline was stopped for a couple of seconds shorter compared to Robbie Kelly, so they gained a little bit of time there, but it looks like the gap is again extending only after a couple of laps, only a couple of quarters here. So it looks like Adeline really had a really better pit stop there, but it's still not quite enough to get ahead of Robbie Kelly.
And unfortunately, Alexander Vanderwood, who's quite a ways behind and has to go through the traffic to try and get towards Lewis Adeline. They have been battling before, and as we see the replay here of Absolute Luck, and that was just a lockup and just going really wide, losing control of the race car. But thankfully, they stopped just in time before they reached the kill leader or the barriers.
Just in time there, but those tires are not going to be happy for these last 23 minutes of our race here. So they're going to have to just try to enjoy the hand message simulator as long as they can. And there, as we see more flashing happening on the main street. I'm not quite sure which of these cars are, but I think there's got to be some more lap traffic around, trying to get through as fast as possible. In fact, that's going to be Alexander Van der Voorde here, still trying to chase down Adeline and Kelly there. I think both of these cars are going to be done with their pit stops now. That's going to be down to just try to navigate through this lap traffic and try to re-enter this fight between Adeline, but it looks like Vanderwood is just stuck in traffic, and they're just bleeding more time to the leading two cars.
Yeah, that's just really unfortunate for Vanderwood, but that's the price you pay for staying out and coming into lap traffic. And right now they're paying the price with being quite a way behind the battle of Adeline and Kelly, and the battle between Adeline and Kelly slowly developing as Adeline slowly sustains that 1.2 second gap, but it's too close to call.
too close to call indeed there. But we're going to keep our attention on Nicholas Zahn here, who had some incidents early on in the race here, but they're now going to be chasing down Racing Mango for the P90 position here, trying to get around them. The gap has been shrinking down a little comparing to these laps here. Nicholas Zahn has been doing consistent 25 lap times here compared to Racing Mango's 26 this year. As we see a car going off in the background, that's going to be Danny's smile face. Demi? That's Debbie's smile, yes, apologies. They're just losing the car here, losing a lot of time to their car set. As we see another fight developing between Robert Raudian, and that's going to be also Callum Mooney here, going side by side through these left-handers here. Raudian having a bit of a
door banging
moment there from Callum Mooney, but Callum Mooney's going to have the inside heading into turn 6, so they might just about be able to squeeze ahead there. And yes, they are trying their best, but Roadbase is able to carry the momentum to still stay alongside, heading into turn 8. Still trying to kill on there, and still does, heading through turn 8 now into turn 9. They've been side by side through several laps here, and they are still side by side, heading now into turn 10 there. That's going to be inside, outside, just switchbacks after switchbacks after switchbacks, still side by side with also Katie Fox in the background there, trying to re-enter this fight as well there, but looks like Robert Raudian just about squeezing ahead into turn 12 there, just about after fighting for an entire lap around there, as we see two cars off the background there. Oh no! That is, I think that's Racing Mango in the bracket. That's also going to be another car that's also lost themselves a huge amount of time. Let's see what exactly had happened between them. That's going to be, I think, from the Racing Mango's perspective, as they're going to be pushing. I think they just pushed a bit too hard.
Oh,
that's going to be
synchronized spinning.
Synchronized spinning from two different cars who didn't even touch each other. So I think they may have been telepathically linked at that point.
You could say that's massive netcode, but that's something you don't have in Le Mans Ultimate. You can really go elbows out with these cars, even in prototypes, as we see Katie Fox and Callum Mooney having a battle, because now Rotainen now ahead, and now that TGR sandwich happening once again.
TGR sandwiches all around here. And we also have a little bit of an update. We have seen a retirement from Fez Fox. So one of our leading drivers are currently in the pit lane and they have DNF. I'm not quite sure why that happened, but I think they had an incident at some point and they just opted to just park the car here and wrap it up there with only not so much left of the race to go here. So that's going to be only a fight between Robbie Kelly, between Adeline, between Van der Voort here for the lead of the race here. As we see more fighting, more lap traffic around there, putting more wrench into the wheels of these drivers here. Looks like Callum Moody lost a bit of time to Katie Fox there. That's going to be a chance for Katie Fox to try and make a move happen on the Echo Racing Team car there. TGR versus Echo. Here we go. It's going to be now through the main straight here. I don't think there's going to be enough space to make a send happen there, but the gap is shrinking a little by little. It's going to be those tiny little hundreds of a second differences that might just be the crucial thing they need as they head down into turn one. But no, they're going to be losing a lot of time there. I think they have eased on the brakes quite a lot there compared to Callum Mooney here to just try to maybe wait for another opportunity later on in the road.
Yeah, Mooney currently better on braking than Katie Fox, as it seems, so they're holding on their own just fine. But right now, Katie's just peeking in, trying to find the opportunity to get past, because they've been... Oh no, that's Olsen! That's Olsen with a spin! No, that was a really close one!
Oh, that was a very resave joining moment right there. Thankfully, nobody got injured in that moment there. But Parker Olsen losing the car. I think that was going to be... Let's see on the replay what exactly happened. They're going to be shooting themselves down hard into the braking zone, into turn one. No, that's going to be contact. That's going to be contact from one of the... I think that may have been absolute luck there. That may have had some contact with them. Just lost the rear on the car. That's not going to be a happy Fox in that car.
Yeah, that might be lap traffic too. So that's just really unfortunate. As Katie Fox gets... I think that's Katie. Yeah, that's definitely Katie Fox going past.
No, that is Adrian Newt there.
No, Adrian Newt. Yeah, I'm colorblind. Blue and purple, really hard to tell. But yeah, Adrian Newt getting past Fury April as it stands.
Yeah, both of these drivers not having the best race so far here, but Fury April has been able to gain quite a lot of positions in the race so far. They've been up 6 spots from where they originally qualified in the race here, as we see more fighting happening between Sarah Van Vlietman and Thomas Johnson Swartz there, heading into turn one here. Both of these drivers have been suffering from massive bad luck here. Now Sarah Van Vlietman has to defend from Thomas's assault, heading into turn one there. Thomas going to be peeking up on the inside. They're going to be shooting themselves hard on those brakes. They're going to be squeezing ahead, but Sarah Van Vlietman is trying to cling on the outside. They're going to be banging doors on the side-by-side moment there, but Thomas just about squeezes their way through.
Yeah, that was a really good send for Thomas Johnson Swartz, but But Sarah Van Beeplen coming back with the slipstream. Will they go around the outside? Thomas Justin Swartz on the inside. Will Van Beeplen hang it around the outside? They sure are, and gets the move done, but it's a little bit questionable because they went off track. That might be track limits. That might be an illegal pass.
I think that might be something for the stewards to decide, because Sarah Van Vlietman is not giving that precision back from the looks of things. She is just going to be gone into the horizon as soon as possible at this point there. Now we're going to be seeing a fight happening between Van der Voort and Louis Adeline, who has now caught up to Adeline to have a rematch between these two cars for P2 of our race here. Well, meanwhile, Robbie Kelly is in the front there with, again, another 2-second gap after the pit stop cycle has concluded. So Robbie Kelly has just been untouchable this entire race here. They're just going to have to bring the car home for these last couple of minutes left to go here, but now it's going to be Louis Adelie under threat from the pink TGR car right behind it. It's going to be Echo versus TGR all over again.
Yeah, Alexander Vanderwood made up a lot of ground. They had to go past lap traffic for this to happen, as Tai Chin and Fabio Sol having a battle. Fabio Sol on the inside of Tai Chin. Will they get the move done? Yes, they can, but Tai Chin trying to line up for an exit off the Senna S's, but it's not quite, and Fabio Sol runs away with it.
That was a very clean move from Fabio Sol, getting themselves up into that spot here. I feel like Taichi might be just suffering from lack of grip on those really old tires. They were one of the first cars to enter the pit lane at this point, so they might be just suffering from a lack of pace at this point. They're just hemorrhaging so much pace at this point here, which seems to be the similar case happening between Adeline and Alexander Van der Voorde here. It looks like Van der Voorde is just getting themselves closer and closer into Adeline's rear diffuser here, just trying to make those moves happen there, but there's going to be no position gain here so far. We also see Michael Ravenloft there with a bite. Actually, that's going to be Michael, but that's going to be still Titan in a bit of a brief fight here, but we're going to keep our focus on Van der Voorde here, and Adeline as they're going to be going around again for another lap around here. And looking at their lap time comparison, they've been almost dead even on the lap times. Their best lap time is only 0.05 of a second apart, and they've both doing almost exactly the same lap times, lap after lap here. So it's going to be down to just those tiny, minute mistakes in those little corners here. That's going to be a chance for Van der Voorde to try to get around Adeline.
Yeah, Van der Voorde has been really closing in on the rear on the battle, and it's just a matter of how he'll make the pass on the number 57 Echo car, because at the moment, Adeline's just parking the car in all the right places, keeping that gap steady despite how close they are, and just I feel like they're just managing well in general.
Managing pretty well in general there, and still not going to be quite enough space for Van der Voorde to make any moves happen into turn one there, but they are getting very close, and so it's getting Christian Klipper on Kamil Jurasek. Now it's going to be actually Parker Olson on the inside there. Christian Klipper trying to get around the outside, but Olsen just about squeezing ahead, but that's going to be a very slow exit from Olsen into the Senna S. That's going to be an opportunity for Christian Klipper to make a side-by-side move into turn 4 here. They're going to be staying up on the inside. So there's going to be car rejoining the circuit from the pit lane there. It's going to be door packing between the two TGR cars there. They're going to be fighting hard, going left and right, weaving all around there. Christian Klipper is just forced to back off from the, I think that was an assault from the Fox at this point.
Goodness, guys. I mean, these guys are just absolutely throwing hands at each other, and that might drag Adrian Newt into the mix as well.
That was a hard bit of fighting between them. Parker also just about managed to stay ahead as we see a fight reawoken between Jurasek and Fabio Sol. But Fabio Sol has the inside heading into the main turn there, getting into the main straight here. But Jurasek is going to be now starting right behind into turn 1. But Jurasek doesn't seem to have the traction that Fabio Sol has. I think Fabio Sol has the better tires of these two cars here, but Jurasek is not giving up. Jurasek is still there. They're going to be thinking about the move up on the inside. They're going to be thinking about a dive, but no, they are staying behind Fabio Sol. They're maybe hoping to get a better run into the Senna S and into turn 4 there. Let's see how they're going to be performing both of the cars. They're going to be both with a really nice and tidy exit, but looks like Fabio Sol got the better run here as we now see a fight happening between Adeline and Van der Voorde into turn. This is going to be a fight for P2. Adeline on the inside, Voorde on the outside there, almost touching. No, they touched!
Oh no, it's a spin!
Louis is in the wall! She's gone! That's going to be Van der Voorde in P2, but it's not the way you want to make that move happen.
Yeah, Adeline has spun, but I don't think she hit the wall. She can get back on track as soon as possible, but Alexander Van der Voorde, very brave effort around the outside. I feel like Adeline just spun on her own, which is a really unfortunate situation, but yeah, that's wooed up the P2, and Adeline trailing down behind, but still P3 ahead of Philip Beckervold, and that was
very close for sure.
Yeah,
hard to say if that was actual contact at that point.
And we have a TGR 1-2 as it stands now.
Oh yeah, that is the TGR team will be very happy about that in the end. But there's still going to be about 12 minutes left of the race to go here, and anything can still happen in these last minutes. So don't count it until the crow flies or whatever the idiom happens to be. So still more fighting happening also between Taijin and Kamil Jurasek, who has now trying to catch up to the fight that happened right between Fabio Sol and him. It looks like Fabio Sol is just now gone in the horizon. It looks like Jurasek is just struggling with a lack of grip on those older aching tires here. I think they're in a similar situation to Taijin, but it seems like Taijin has a bit of a better car underneath them. They're really catching up fast to Kamil Jurasek. Their last lap time was a half a second faster compared to Jurasek there. So I think the Polish driver is going to be under assault very, very soon.
Yeah, Taichin absolutely on a charge right now. Now they're closing up on Kamil Jurasek, and I'm not sure how much they'll make up, but it's quite a lot of ground right now. This could be in for the top 10 for Chin, but they just gotta keep their pace. They just gotta keep their timings right. They just gotta get that braking all right without locking up the brakes. They don't have without spinning off the infamous turns 8 and 10 that have been claiming a lot of victims, and just keeping the car steady so that they can just slowly climb their way up the ranks.
Talk about a commentator's curse there, but hopefully that's not going to be happening in these last little dime moments of this race here. Jurasek is still trying their best to stay ahead of Taijin, but it looks like Taijin is just able to claw the difference back little by little, gap by gap, lap by lap here. We're going to have to watch closely what the gap is going to be at the end here as they're going to be crossing the finish line here and what their lap time comparison is going to be. Looks like Fabio Sol is now well clear of Jurasek. They're now going to be trying to assault Katie Fox, as we see right ahead of them, trying to maybe have a little fight between them for the next position on the track here. Looks like Katie Fox is off.
Well, that's
he
getting
lost
wide.
A big lockup from the cars. They're bouncing all those curbs there. A really poor exit, giving Fabio Sol the opportunity to get right up alongside Katie Fox there, but Katie Fox managing to just about squeeze the door shut right ahead, but no, Fabio Sol is not going to be right on the inside heading into turn 4. This is going to be a really good move, and in fact they're going to be just clean through into P8. Looks like Katie Fox is also suffering from really old aching tires there. They just don't have the pace of Fabio Sol here, who has been on a massive charge through the entire field here. I remind you, Fabio Sol started all the way down in P19. He's P8.
Yeah, Fabio Sol, a man on a mission right now. They didn't have the best qualifying, but their race pace is making up tons for it, because they have made up, as you said, 11 positions, and I feel like that's not gonna be stopping anymore. Now it's a spinner from 45 and the 10. I believe that's Johnson Swartz, and I'm not sure the 45 is, but we got two spinners.
I think that may
I'm
have
not
been
sure.
Mango. Yeah, that is Racing Mango's car there that also had a contact there. So unfortunate moment for the two of them in these last little moments of the race, as we see more lap traffic around and trying to get her out of the way there. Now we're going to be watching the fight, but that's going to be Kamil Jurasek, and again under a threat from Taijin for the next couple of laps here. The gap has not actually shrunken too much here, so I think Kamil Jurasek might have got their tires back in the window to just stay ahead of Taijin at this point, to try and keep clinging on to that final P10 spot of our race here, with only a couple of minutes left to go here. So it's going to be a lot of pressure for the Polish driver as they go off into turn 3 into that center S there. So that's going to be maybe a track limits warning there, but hopefully no penalty for them so far. But Taijin is getting closer.
Yeah, Taichin on a huge charge, but still not making it past Jurasek. Jurasek holding on their position just as well, but it's just going to be really intimidating having Taichin, the charging LMP2 car, on your rear end, because you're going to have to do a lot of defending. And trust me, Kamir has done a lot of defending in this race. They had that three-way battle all the way before the pit window, and that's a spin from Taichin. That's an unfortunate case recovering the car, but that's going to be a lot of time lost for Taichin and a lot of ground to cover once again.
I don't think they might have enough time left at this point. There's only a couple of minutes left of the race to go here, only a couple more laps here, and now they've lost several seconds to Kamil Jurasek. It's going to be 3 seconds they're going to have to gain back in the next couple of minutes here, so there's not going to be not a lot of time left at this point here. So I think that might be race over. Not race over, but I think that'd be their chance at getting any more positions over for Taichin. But we still see more fighting between Phil Reck and Parker Olsen there, also fighting a bit of lap traffic. I think that's going to be Mark Copeland there in the background. They're trying to get away from their car there, but it looks like Mark Copeland maybe has a little bit more pace compared to Phil Renk there trying to get themselves unlapped at this point there, with also Parker Olsen there, also being another cork in the bottle there, this whole gaggle of cars around there. There's like 5 different cars, they're all in different laps there, all trying to get a great fight for position. This is gonna be a big mess.
I do want to point out, Phil Rank looks a bit loose on the braking. They've been wiggling a bit on the braking zones, but Phil Rank got the top speed on Parker Olsen, wrapping around the outside, and it's going to be a drag race, but Olsen holding their ground as soon as Rank comes out of the slipstream, going down the outside, but not quite, and it's going to be Olsen still ahead of Rank, but it's going to be really close. I feel like that could be, I'm not sure if that's lap traffic or not, but lap traffic may have messed up Olsen. It might have given Phil Rank a chance, and Rank is just wiggling. They're 3 wide. They're 3 wide coming into turn 4. It's gonna be really close, but Phil Rank gets past the back marker for good measure.
That's also a lap down car. The beige car, there's a lap down Mark Corbin here, also trying to unlap themselves on Olsen and on Phil Rank there, and it's got all of them just fighting for the position for 3 wide into turn 4 there. This is insane fight here. Now we see Mark Corbin trying to get around Johnson as well in their own little fight here, with also, I think that's going to be Smutty Luck in the background as well, also trying to unlap themselves from their own little gaggle between these cars here. There's happening fighting on several different laps, on several different groups of cars here, all trying to occupy the same part of the track here, so it's going to be an utter cluster something happening there as they're going to be heading through into turn 3. There's going to be Mark Corbin on the inside, dashing deep on those brakes into turn 12. That's way too deep, though. They can't get the momentum carried through to stay ahead. In fact, that's going to be another car now on the inside there. I'm not quite sure which of these cars. That might be absolute luck. They're also trying to unlap themselves at this point there, but there's still going to be a very awkward bit of fighting there, just desperately trying to cling on to any more scraps of positions here and just hemorrhaging time from those mistakes.
Colbert's on a mad charge right now, and I'm loving it right now. As you saw, trying to unlap themselves, trying to get past Thomas Johnson Schwartz. Now Colbert has to do that all over again, unlap themselves, and now beating Schwartz off the line.
Yeah, it's looking to be a very close fight between them. They are still on the same lap here, with also a lap traffic car falling between these 2 cars here. But I'm not quite sure which of these cars is which one, because they are both with identical liveries here. So I think Mark Colbert has the same exact problem here. They're just going to have to try and get around both of them, as we see even more fighting happening between these 2 different lapped cars between each other. One trying to unlap each other, the other one trying to defend from Mark Colbert right behind them. But it looks like they are going to be... No, they are not giving up. No, they are giving up the position in the end there, letting the lap ahead car clear the way through ahead, and now it's going to be Mark Coburn trying to chase down Johnson for one more chance at overtaking them with only 5 minutes left of the race to go here, so it's going to be only a couple more laps left.
These minutes will be very crucial for Mark Colburn to try and get past Thomas Schwartz. Colburn having the pace overall, and that was Fabio Sol getting past Kellen Mooney as in the number 22 Echo LMP2 car, and I feel like that's another position up for Fabio Sol. They're now up to P7.
Fabio Sol on an absolute mission at this, but again, another position gain. It looks like Calamini simply does not have the tire, does not have the pace in that old LMP2 car to stay ahead, as we see another fight developing between Colburn and Johnson Schwartz. They're heading through into turn 1. Johnson trying to get up on the outside with Mark Coburn on the inside there. Mark Coburn has the back out at the end there. There's going to be another chance for them. And again, it's going to be another car behind. They also trying to unlap themselves in this whole mess here. They don't want to have any part of this fight there, but they are forced to do it, as we now see Johnson and Mark Corbin again side by side. Mark Corbin trying to juke the Johnson on the outside. They're trying to force them to make a mistake, but they are holding strong on the defense here. Gonna have to try again for another attempt heading through into turn 5, into 6, into 7, into 8. That's gonna be your next chance to make any braking zones, any overtaking opportunity to happen here. But looks like both of them are staying where they are. There's gonna be they're gonna have to wait again for later on in the lap to make another move happen. But no, Mark Colburn is still there. They are really close, but they lock up their tires. They're gonna be losing more tire life. All those tires are trying to push so hard to get around Johnson, and Johnson is just fighting for their life at this point.
Yeah, Mark Colburn driving the wheels off that LMP2 car, just trying to get past Thomas Johnson Schwartz, but at the moment Schwartz defending quite valiantly. But is it enough? No, Colburn fakes a move into the inside to try and get a better exit and a move into turn 1. Into the slipstream Colburn goes, but I don't think it's enough. Because Absolute Luck behind it also has the slipstream. They're even going beyond track limits, going on the green stuff into into the main straight, but Colburn fighting relentlessly, diving into turn 1. Could this be the move for Mark Colburn? It's contact, but Colburn going out to wrap around the outside of the center SS, and that's Colburn through.
Tires screaming, tires smoking, tires locked up, but they make the set happen. They are through. Ahead, now we see Absolute Luck also trying to try their luck around Johnson. They're trying to get ahead of them. They might just about make it happen as Johnson and Colburn. No, it's going to be Johnson off on the gravel there into the AstroTurf as Absolute Luck. No, that's going to be actually Johnson still ahead. Absolute Luck right behind them, but that's going to be Mark Colburn with a bold move. Their tires screaming for dear life, just begging for mercy, locking up fully into turn 1 there, but somehow they make their set happen as we see Tai Chin also off in the gravel again. So I think their tires are just completely shot at this point. They have no more pace left in the car as we see another car. That's going to be Phil Reg also off in the gravel there. They lost their car as well, so all the position they gained trying to get ahead of Park also now all lost. And now we see what's happening in the replay here. That's going to be Phil Reg ahead of Parker Olsen at this point, but they're going to be just pushing a bit too hard. I think that's going to be on turn 9 there, just spinning around all the way around like a record baby right round, and they're going to be all the way down now in P15.
That was chaos. That was godsend for Mark Colburn. The lockup coming into turn 1. That's something you would see from the likes of Max Verstappen. That was insane.
What I'm also seeing here are requested pit stops from Philip Beckervold and Fabio Sol here. They're both, I see Philip Beckervold really low on fuel here. I see them at 2.4% with about a minute 30 left of the race to go here. So they might just be out of fuel there. They might be forced to head into the pit lane for a splash and dash there unless the race ends very, very soon here. So I think they may have just underfueled their car a little bit. They might be in big, big trouble at this point.
Yeah, Beckervold unfortunately having that miscalculation, that's gonna pay a huge price. They're up in P4, but that will send them tumbling down the order a lot. But I feel like, looking at the fuel graph, I feel like Fabio Sol has more of a chance than Beckervold, but only time will tell. And I feel like it's gonna be really close for Sol, because I'm not sure where Kelly is. They might be crossing the finish line now, as far as I'm aware.
These are going to be the crucial last minutes here. We also see more low fuel warnings from Adrian Nude, from Fabio Sol, from Katie Fox. All of our cars are really low on fuel here, so it's going to be all down to when Robbie Kelly is going to be crossing the finish line. They're going to be heading through to turn 1 here very soon. So I think Robbie Kelly is very safe in their own fuel margin. They're not going to have to worry about a splash and dash here. But I know Philip Becker was going to be in huge trouble. They're down to 1% fuel here, so they're going to have to do massive fuel saving just to get into the pit lane and splash and dash their car. But no! Yeah, there we go. Now they're going to be heading into the pit lane for that splash and dash there. Going to be losing massive amounts of time there. They just underfueled the car a tiny bit more here. But we now see also more fighting happening between two TGR cars. That's going to be Rick again rejoining the fight between Parker Olsen heading through into turn 4 there, thinking about a peek up on the inside into turn 4 there. But there's not going to be enough space for them to make that move happen here, as we now see Robbie Kelly crossing the finish line. They're going to be heading on the main lap here. I think this is going to be now the final lap here, as we see Robbie Kelly heading through the main straight. That's going to be them on a final weave, left and right. I think this is going to be the last lap, and this is going to be the checkered flag flying right at this point here. We're going to be watching very soon here. No, this is the last lap. This is going to be Robbie Kelly officially winning the race here with Van der Wood right in the background. They're getting themselves P2 and Luis Adeline in P3 there. It's going to be a couple more cars heading to pit lane. It's going to be Fabio Sol also in the pit lane. They're forced to take a final splash and dash there, so they're huge gains on trying to get through the field. That's all going to be costing dearly because they just underfield the car a tiny bit too little. And now it's going to be still a final lap shootout between Reg, between Olsen here, heading through to turn. That's going to be our final chance for anybody to make a move happen. That's going to be Olsen under serious net. That's going to be a drag race. It's going to be a drag race into the final corner. It's going to be the final lap shootout between these two cars here. It's going to be less than a 10.
Oh, contact!
They're running doors. They're side by side. I don't know who is it going to be. It's Reg. Reg just about squeezes ahead with like 1/100th of a second in the last corner of the race.
That was some insane dueling between Olsen and Reg, the two Tin Gang teammates going elbows out on the final stretch, a la Hamilton and Gasly back in 2019. This is some really good stuff.
that is now race over for most of our cars here. That's going to be also Tyler Van Beek in P4, Robert Rauti on P5 here, rounding out our top 5. But that's going to be a huge win for Robbie Kelly. They were the class of the field. But we see even more fighting happening between these two cars here. I think that was going to be Callum Mooney and Fabio Solia. I'm not quite sure which car that is going to be done with the race there at the end here. So that was fighting from lap 1 all the way over to the last lap of the race here, to the last quarter of the last lap of the race here. So this has been an insane race. And if this is what we're going to be seeing through the rest of the calendar here, this is going to be a very, very, very fun season.
Yeah, this was a very fun race for sure. Lewis Adeline having to settle for P3, unfortunately. She did have a great start, but unfortunately dropped down the order once those pit stops came through. And that spin after Vanderwood's pass did not help for good measure.
Absolutely not, but I need to have a breath after all that. We're going to be seeing the race results at the end of the race here.
So
We
do
can
I.
see Robbie Kelly there in the lead here with a really good result from Fabio Sol there. They miscalculated their fuel a little bit there, so it didn't get quite the result they would have wanted, but a piece of it is still a very good, commendable result in the end here. So I think at this point we can all just take a break here, because I think all of us now need to just breathe, relax, have a little bit of water here, because that was a very, very intense 2 hours of commentating.
Yeah, I agree. That has been a mouthful, and it really tested these drivers' mettle, and it showed a lot of fighting, a lot of management, and a lot of chaos in general.
Absolutely indeed. But now this is going to be the end of our Interlagos round here. But there's going to be more racing. There's going to be the next round in Fuji Speedway. And if I was looking at the weather forecast, there could be some rain in the horizon. So that's going to be an even more exciting and even more intense race, which I was going to have to think about next week. But for now, that's going to be wrapping us up here at Interlagos for the first round of our prototype challenge. So thank you everybody for coming over, for tuning into this very exciting, very hard-fought race all the way through from start to end here. And hopefully we'll see you all next week for even more. But for now, that's good. Actually, no, I forgot. We have to do, actually not next week. It's going to be 2 weeks away, because next week is going to be our break week because of a Confused. So those of you who go to Confused, you're going to be enjoying that. But there's going to be some more racing happening in that week. So stay tuned for some more updates on our Discord server very soon. But for now, that's going to be a thank you from me, Denak Kalmari, from Suzuka Takahashi in the commentary booth, and Maurer in the background in those cameras, giving us all those awesome moments throughout the whole race here. So for now, thank you everybody, and have a good night.
Goodbye.